Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we got a great show coming up for you tonight. Legendary UFO researcher Grant Cameron returns, and we're going to get into everything UFOs with him. I might have like 2 questions the entire night. You know how it goes with Grant, but we love it when he is here, and he will be joining us momentarily. But first, let's say hello to each and every one of you. Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver. Eternity Eternal with a bronze medal. And who else do we have? We have Race Fan in the hot seat here. Also, coming up next, we have Robert Lamoth. And Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show. Because Grant Cameron says, Dave, I'm not coming on your show unless I'm lubed up and nice and smooth. So, Mel, thank you for lubing up Grant as we speak. Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you, much like Addison Barger tonight. Wow. Look at them freaking Blue Jays. Can't believe it. Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a good night. As we continue on with roll call, What in Tarnation is here. What in Tarnation will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Moving on down, we say hello to our man T-Bone. Thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So T-Bone, thank you very, very much. Thunderhead, how are you tonight? And who is next? Operation Shutdown. Jaquetta, how are you? Eternity Eternal, nice to see you. Alpine Fern, 2 nights in a row. Thank you for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call tonight. And who is next here? Well, let's take a look. We have Ann B. We have just another guy named Harry. And we have Frankie B. Candice, how are you, sweetheart? Nice to see you. Jerence Carter and Necessary Dialogue. Good to have you here as we continue on with our roll call here. And Lori Rosenfield, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us. Lori Rosenfield will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Oh, these names. I don't know what's happening with the YouTube, but none of the names are correct anymore. Flat 6, Love V Love, a.k.a. Vanessa, and Road Flare. Thank you all for joining us. J Truth Seeker, good to have you here. Walter Kochabinski, thanks for coming on in. And in the studio, good to see you. Let's see here. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to have you here. And Deanna Ann looking lovely tonight. Channel Warhorse, nice to see you. Cosmic Joe, thanks for coming on in. Algaray over on Twitch. Literally so pumped up for Grant. Bench press 515 pounds 37 times. He's only counting 17, but he did 37. He didn't want to embarrass the rest of us. That's right. Thank you, Algaray, for coming on in. All right. I think we got to scroll down here now. And Rob Duval, welcome. The old driftwood right there. Fast Hemi, good to see you, bud. Thank you for joining us. I think we're caught up. Let's get the radio side going. Hold on a second here. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to get into aliens, UFOs, the news with Grant Cameron. I've got one question planned the entire night. Grant will take it from there, as we love it when Grant Cameron is here. He is my favorite, my idol, and I just love the man. Love the man. We're in roll call on our YouTube side as we say hello to Ms. Tessa Marie, looking lovely tonight. And Stargazer, nice to see you. And once again, thank you to T-Bone for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you, T-Bone, my man. I always love your love and support. And of course, if you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week. Why? Because, well, we got nothing better to do. Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon, nice to see you. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Thank you, Lori, for adding to the Super Chat. And here we go, everybody.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're going to have an amazing show tonight. My hero, my mentor, and one of the greatest minds in ufology, Grant Cameron, is here to join us momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Follow that up, Lee Strauss with the Q&A. We're going to have a good time tonight, so let's get right to it. You may know this guy as he's only been doing ufology for about half a century. Grant Cameron is a Canadian ufologist, formerly of Winnipeg, Alberta, now living near all the knuckleheads in Vancouver. Yeah, he spent decades uncovering the hidden links between UFOs, government, secrecy, and human consciousness. Known for his groundbreaking research into presidents' involvement in the UFO programs, Grant's investigations connect politics, disclosure, and a deeper reality of contact. And we're going to bring him right in. But before we do, we want to remind everybody, Grant has an extreme collection of books that he has written on the subject. You can find them all on Amazon. Grant Cameron, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine, Dave. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate your interest and the fact you had nobody else to put on.
Well,
and I'm glad to see my friend Lori from Toronto is here, and I welcome Lori.
Yes, Lori is. Lori only comes in when we have good Canadian people on. Otherwise, she's like, get rid of it, Dave. Come on.
She's happy because the Blue Jays won tonight. They finally got to win something. And we're all cheering. I mean, I can't believe we're actually cheering for the Blue Jays. I mean,
it's terrible, isn't it? I refuse. As a New York Yankees fan, I refuse to cheer for the Toronto Blue Jays. Refuse. I can't. It's an American League East thing, so, but here we go. Here we are. It's hockey season now, man. It's hockey season. Grant, I want to make one quick announcement for people who haven't heard. Everybody has heard the rumor that up here in 2026, we are going to be putting on, Spaced Out Radio is going to be helping put on what we call the Caribou Con. That's CARIBOOCONN or CON, Caribou Con. And our featured speaker for the weekend will be none other than Mr. Grant Cameron. And I am so excited to have you up September 18th through 20th, 2026. And that we've booked you in early. So now you can't say you're combing your hair or washing the dishes that weekend, because you're going to be up here in the beautiful Caribou region speaking about UFOs.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor that you're having this big show there. That's impressive, because we don't have many conferences in Canada, and it takes a lot of chutzpah to pull off a conference, because you can lose a lot of money, and it's always touch and go as to what people are doing on that weekend. So I'm glad you've done one before, which I attended, and I'll be glad to do whatever I can to help you with this one. And we'll recruit some of these, whatever, we got 4 million people here in Vancouver, and we'll get some of them up there. Because there's lots of people that are sort of coming out of the woodwork here in Vancouver now, and lots of good stories.
Well, it is a story time when it comes to UFOs. And Grant, you've been doing this for half a century, started with Charlie Red Star. Did you ever think, looking back after that Charlie Red Star incident, that UFOs 50 years later would still be your hot topic of interest?
No, that's what I didn't think. I thought that somebody had to figure it out, because as I've told the story, like the first night I saw it, it was all very spectacular. And I suddenly realized there were miracles, that this kind of stuff actually did happen. There was no doubt what I'd seen. And then the second night, as it was flying away, it came at me the second night, and then sort of turned around and flew away. And then I'm thinking, like, what's it doing? It's not doing anything. And then I thought, well, this is all very amazing, but somebody's got to know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on here. And, I sort of thought, well, maybe this is extraterrestrial spacecraft, which I think everybody back in 75, you either didn't believe it or you believed it was probably extraterrestrial. So it's flying away. I figured, like a lot of people describe in ufology, where I figured, we'll make a couple phone calls, we'll do a few things, and we'll solve this thing. We'll find out who's got the answer. And I'm still looking. And I went from the Canadian government. There's all these synchronicities through my father, who was a pilot for the Department of Transport that Paul Hellyer ran, plus he ran Defense Department. And the Canadians, I learned a little bit. And then I went from there to the former president of Penn State University, who's the head of the military think tank in the United States. And he told us a few things. And then I went to the president to figure out the president's got to know what the heck's going on here. He's the most powerful guy in the world. And I got a little more, but I got the impression, well, there wasn't really any documents to look at, and I really didn't know there. And then it just gradually kept going until now I maintain that it is the people that are dealing with the intelligence that have the answers, if there are any answers to get. But after 50 years, what has become clear to me is that it gets more complex and more complex and more complex. And you've been around for a while, and anybody that's been around, especially as long as I have, knows that in 75, it was a very simple thing. There was UFOs flying around. There was 1, 2, 3 reports of abductions. When I got my experience, Travis Walton hadn't even been abducted yet. He was abducted later in the year of the same year that I was involved. And the year I was involved was when Linda Howe got involved, when Bud Hopkins got involved, when the Swiss story, the big Billy Myers story happened. When the nuclear base thing happened with being over the nuclear bases, the first near-death experience was written the same time as Travis Walton was abducted. And those nuclear base things happened on the same time that Travis Walton was abducted. And I pointed out just in the last year when I discovered it, is that every night that Travis Walton was gone, there was a UFO over a nuclear weapons storage area or a bunker in the United States. Every single night he was gone, there was a report of a UFO over a nuclear weapons storage area. And so the more I look at it, it started off very simple. There's going to be extraterrestrial and these aliens lost in space. And I'm one of the people now that's sort of throwing that out the window and said, nah, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be extraterrestrial. It's going to be very, very complex. It's going to be highly spiritual, which a lot of people aren't going to like. And it's going to have to do with consciousness, which a lot of people don't like either. They want to, sort of walk away. You can see that. I was just talking to somebody today. I'm on so many of these pain-killing drugs that I don't. My mind doesn't work well. But I was having a discussion. I was with Ray Hernandez, and that was last night. And we were talking about this thing that when you go to like Consciousness Life Expo, which is supposed to be a conference on consciousness, you can go there. I can go there and give a lecture. Ray talked about the same figure that he got 35 people for a lecture at this place where there's like whatever. Some people said 30,000 people. I don't know if it's that many. They have a Spanish section and an English section. And then across the hall, I remember the Blue Avian thing was going on, and they had sold 700 tickets at like $80 a ticket or $75 a ticket. And I'm going, this is insane. I got 35 people, and it's like there's 100 people in the hall that oversold the room, and these people are all upset and they want their money back, and we got ripped off here, and how can they sell so many seats and stuff like that? And I'm going, this is insane. So consciousness is something that it's coming online. More and more people are talking about it. I'm absolutely convinced that is the bottom line. You got to understand how the world works, and that's what we got to do. We're working it backwards. We're going from UFO sightings, and we're trying to move it back from there. We got to start from the how reality actually works, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now, is going through this whole quantum physics thing and consciousness and what is primary and how the world began and all this kind of stuff. And I think I sort of understand what's going on now, but most people are still wandering around in, entertainment, which is what ufology comes down to in many respects. It's basically fear is what works on the internet. So a lot of the stuff is fear, the evil aliens. That gets you a lot of clicks. It makes you money. And the whole entertainment thing, that you've got to entertain people, and people are entertained by sightings. When you start getting into the philosophy of consciousness and how the world works, their eyes start to roll back in their heads, and they just it's what Jim Semivan, the 2-star general at the CIA, described as it's indigestible. He said when you get all this inside stuff as to how it may actually work, this very complex stuff, he said, like, you got half the people in the United States read at a grade 6 level, and you just can't drop this stuff on people when they start to describe what's actually at the bottom line of this thing. And he actually described, and I may have talked about this last time I was on, but he talked about the briefing. So he has his experience, and he's all upset about the fact that they violated his civil rights. He's the head spy for the U.S. running covert ops, and these beings are in his room, and he's all upset that they violated his privacy and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, really? Like, the CIA, do you ask for permission when you go steal people's stuff, or infiltrate countries and stuff like that? But anyway, he got a briefing when he left. Ron Pandolfi, is the story I heard, got briefed. He got briefed when he left. They told him when he was in the CIA, leave it alone, pretend it's a one-off. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to ruin your career if you talk about it. And when he left, Ron Pandolfi, according to the story I got, he was briefed. And then he talks about this 7-hour briefing that he got. He was told to get a conference room for 6 to 8 hours inside the CIA. And he said people, scientists and military contractors who had as many security clearances as he did, walked in and talked to him for 7 hours and scared the living daylights out of him. And they asked him after, they said, would you like another briefing? He said, no, I've seen enough. I don't want any more briefings. And he was asked, they're like, what did they discover in the briefing? What was the bottom line? He said, yeah, they did discover some stuff. And was it UFO? He said, no, nothing. UFO, they're basically, and he made this bet that I'll bet a year of my pension that they haven't got anywhere, that they basically haven't got anything. But he said what they did discover was all the size, all the psychic phenomena, psychokinesis, all that stuff. It's all real. And he was going, it's real? I thought this was all garbage. And they were going through this and this. And he said he walked around for 3 months and a days, that he just couldn't believe that this stuff was for real, and that the CIA had unraveled some of this stuff. And his wife would look at him and wonder what was wrong with him. And you can take a look at that. So if you got the top spy for the CIA who gets blown away by a briefing that he's given 7 hours, that's why he said it's indigestible. You simply cannot drop this stuff on the American population. They're not ready for it. There's absolutely no way. I mean, you can see that he wasn't ready for it. That when you start to look at it, it gets very, very complex and very, very weird. And it's something that I think the phenomena is actually controlling the situation. They're as they told me, I got it as clear as day. They said, "What are you worried about? You're all concerned about this stuff. Don't worry, we know how to land the plane." So one of my disclosure books I called, Beyond Managing Magic, Landing the Plane, which is this concept that they gave me, that they've done this on a lot of planets and they know what they're doing and they know exactly how to unravel this thing and drop the breadcrumbs and do all this kind of stuff. And that when we're ready for it, we'll be ready for it, but it isn't anytime soon.
Brandon Fugel, owner of Skinwalker Ranch, recently responded to a comment on X, basically saying that he doesn't believe there will be any sort of disclosure from the governmental side. He believes that there is too much involvement within the military-industrial complex, not just in the United States, but that tentacles from the military-industrial complex have grown and slithered their way into other countries that could potentially bring it out. He thinks that disclosure has to come from more of a grassroots civilian level.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on this, Grant?
Yeah, I would agree with him. He's probably getting some stuff through George Knapp and through Bob Bigelow. And you take a look at Bob Bigelow. Bob Bigelow has basically left the field. He's been gone from the field for 15 years since he ran the OSAP program. He doesn't do anything anymore. He has this Consciousness Institute, but he's gone back to putting modules on the space station. And it's like the old idea, how do you make money at ufology? Well, you don't. And so if they were really on the leading edge of discovering this stuff, then Bigelow would have stayed in it. But that sort of confirms Jim Semivan's story that they really haven't got anywhere. They really don't know, because it has this consciousness backside to it that they just can't grasp. So I think he's right in terms of when we talked to Dr. Eric Walker, and that's where this entertainment thing comes up. Walker said, admit it. You're just curious. Admit it. That's all you're interested in. You're just curious. You want to hear a story. Why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? And that's what it comes down to, is they really don't care. Because, I mean, if they really haven't, say they've discovered 5% of the consciousness thing, they sort of understand a little bit about it. Are you going to put that on the table for the Russians, who they know have been working on this, and the Chinese? I even had somebody that I've encouraged to go to China and do a documentary on the Chinese kids from the 1980s. CIA was very interested in these kids. These kids were doing psychokinesis. They were moving stuff around tables and stuff. That's 1983. And I know Hal Puthoff had given material to Bob Emenegger to go to China to do a documentary on this. So the CIA was watching this. So if you get China and Russia are working on the consciousness aspect, and you put your stuff on the table, and the Russians aren't going to confirm and say, yeah, okay, here's our stuff, then they're just going to say, thank you very much, you bunch of idiots, and we'll go from there. So that's part of the problem. The other one that I have is that's the way military technology works. It's black ops. And when they're finished with it, they control everything. So you can see in the United States of America, it's basically anything that they can claim as national security implications, like Canadian lumber and stuff like that. You say, well, that's national security. And you basically get this situation where they work on it. They control it. DARPA controls all the leading stuff. And if you're working on something that you're about to, break it wide open, they'll come and classify your stuff and put you in the background and call national security on you. And what you have is this situation where they use it and then they hand it down. And the best example was GPS. So GPS was the discovery of the American military, of the DARPA people. And when they went to version 2 or version 3 or whatever, the version 1 was really not of any use. And then they gave it to the public. And I just got an email today.
Grant is frozen.
Because I'm really fascinated with this AI thing, and I won't get much into it, but I use all these AI things, and I'm just like absolutely infatuated with what this thing can do in terms of research. So I'm working on this, and then I sent it to a friend of mine, and I said to him, like, this is amazing. I sent him one of the articles that I had composed for me, or one of the audios and I'm putting these audios and videos on my Facebook and Twitter. But I sent him one, and he said, remember I told you that I worked for the U.S. intelligence for computers back in the 2000s? And I said, it's like, yeah. And he says, well, maybe you should have a show on where all this AI stuff came from. He's sort of laughing. And it's the deal. Like these large language models have been in control of the military and DARPA and intelligence people for a long time. And now this thing's filtering down into the public. And we think that somebody discovered, all these large language models, whereas the military's had this stuff for 20 years. And all we're seeing is the sort of their throw off stuff that they don't need anymore.
Do you think then that they are now from the Pentagon to the Congress and the Senate, that they are trying to figure out a way to get this back underneath the rug where it belongs, in their opinion?
Well, they've done that already. The closest we came was the Schumer Amendment. And I have said numerous times that if the Democrats had had 6 more votes in the House of Representatives, they would have controlled the Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. There would have been a vote. It would have been positive. So the vote was positive for all this sort of stuff, where the president is going to be in charge. The president is running the show. This is an executive branch show, no matter what anybody thinks. That's why they figure they don't have to tell Congress about it. So the president would be over top of 9 people, and they would have subpoena power to call in anybody and make them testify. The contractors would have to give their material back and stuff like that. And what happened was that the Democrats didn't control the House. So the Senate passed it. And then these 2 guys that ran the Armed Services and the Intelligence Committee said, we're going to block this. And they got Mike Johnson on board, and it became a party line vote. And it was game over. They didn't have the Democrats didn't have the votes to push it through. And so that whole thing folded. And then they brought it up again last year, wherever it would like again. And it's like, what, are these people stupid? And they didn't have the votes the first time. They're not going to have the votes the second time. It basically came down to party line vote. If there had been 6 more Democrats, we would have disclosure today, because basically what it was complete opening of the files, this 9-person committee under the president, all the material handed back, eminent domain, and there's nothing anybody could have done to stop it. So we did come very close to disclosure. But as long as you've got situations where these guys have got money, and I'll give you the prime example, is if you take a look at the new ballroom that's been put on the White House, you will see that 7 of the companies that are putting money to this $300 million or whatever are connected to they're either military contractors or they're connected to military contractors. And one of them is Lockheed Skunk Works. So anybody that thinks that the president who's running the show is in control of this thing is going to turn Lockheed Skunk Works and tell them to return their flying saucer when they're given millions of dollars to what he wants to do. And you can remember that the president that's in right now, a lot of his money is coming from big time corporations, and he's not going to turn against his big time corporations. The president has to green light this thing if there's a disclosure. And as long as these people are providing money, there's no chance he's going to turn against the corporations and put a knife in their back after they've given him millions and millions of dollars. Well,
no, and the fact that you don't want to break that ability to hide things that you don't want out there, Grant.
Yeah, but you got to realize, I don't know what it is. It's like how many pages of black ops. We're worried about one. They have thousands and thousands of these programs that are being run sort of off the books, and we got attention now because everybody's sort of interested in this one. But there's scores and scores of these things. This is how they've done the business since the 1940s, and it all comes through fear. It comes through the idea that in World War II they invented 200 different things like jet engines and plastic explosives and radar and all this kind of stuff, and it worked so good they said, wow, we should keep doing this. And because before World War II, the Americans really didn't have much of technology of anything. They were behind the scenes, and they developed this system of keeping it quiet and hiring the best people they could and controlling it. And then after Sputnik, for sure, when they got nailed by Sputnik, when Sputnik beat them to space, that's when they developed DARPA. And DARPA's main mission is never again will anybody beat us to the punch. We're not going to get caught blind again. And that's the thing. They always want to be at the leading front edge. And you can't if you're going to be giving away all your secrets as to what you discovered and what you haven't discovered.
Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Legendary UFO researcher is absolutely the number one guy in my world. Grant Cameron is here. He is hanging on out with us, talking UFOs all night long. This is Spaced Out Radio. And our good friend Grant Cameron, based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. talking to UFOs. We will continue with the disclosure talk when we return, and we'll ask him about the Roswell alien body. Yeah, we'll get to that next on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, we are clear.
Good.
All right. Oh man, YouTube did something with the names of everybody, and now all of the names are just absolutely screwed up. Candace, how are you? Jennifer, or pardon me, Yennefer with the soft J. Nice to see you. Let's see here. Who else? I think we're caught up there. All right. We're all ready. 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11. How are you? And see, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11. I'm still 11. That's funny. That's funny.
That's good.
I got to go pick up my trail cams on Sunday. See,
See if
see
you
if
got some
we got any action
visitors.
out of the gifting site.
How many sites have you got?
I got 2 sites, but
Okay.
the one is where I only put trail cams up. I
Yeah.
haven't been much to my previous site. Probably should go there, but I'm giving it some time off. You know. Poor Fap here. He's just dying that his Dodgers got shit kicked tonight.
It's kind of surprised. It didn't start off very well for them.
You don't put up a 9 spot on the Dodgers, though, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You don't put up 3 field goals against them in 1 inning.
Yeah. Because they did look pretty dominant in the first 2. I actually went for coffee. I said to my kid, okay, that's it. They're supposed to score in the 7th. So he said, well, wait till the 7th. I said, I'm out of here. It looks like it's over already. I went there for coffee. And then the Jets won. So I think the Edmonton, I'm not sure. What's happening with Edmonton? Are they going to sign Connor?
Oh, well, they got him 2 years. They locked him up 2 years.
Oh, they did. Okay. I
He
missed that.
took a hometown discount of 12.5.
Holy shit. That's unreal. That's
Yeah.
unreal.
They were expecting him to go after that guy in Minnesota, that Russian signed in Minnesota for
That's
like
insane.
17 a year. They figured Connor was it was basically an open checkbook. What do you want?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they expected him to go like 18, 19, maybe even 20. And he's like, no, 12.5 is good. Let's win. Find us a goalie. Let's win.
What the heck is wrong with Minnesota? That's absolutely insane.
Especially for a Russian that literally spends a third of the year injured.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
The Russians, except for Ovechkin, most of them are like,
Oh, I know.
They go good for a year and then they go flat, and then they
Yep.
Ovechkin scored again tonight, 899.
Oh man. I love Alexander Ovechkin. I do.
Yeah.
I do. I love Alexander Ovechkin. Parasola, how are you? I watched him in the 2006 entry draft in Vancouver because he was drafted in 04.
Yeah.
I'm covering the NHL draft in 06 in Vancouver. And I'm watching him literally run through Rogers Arena. And Every kid in that building that wanted a photo got a photo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I partied with him at the Roxy after that.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was a good weekend. Good weekend.
Yeah.
Don't remember much, but it was a good weekend. I know that.
Yeah. That's
We got about 30 seconds, Grant.
okay.
All right. And 15 seconds. Thank you to Pam, Mennonite, Abe, Lori, and T-Bone for the super chats. Thank you for our new subscribers. Greatly appreciate all of you. And here we go in 5 seconds, everybody. All right, here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as Grant Cameron, legendary UFO researcher, joins us here on tonight's show. Before we bring Grant back on, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Grant Cameron is here. I'm telling you, I never know what to say because I look at the man and I'm just like, wow, Grant frickin' Cameron on Spaced Out Radio. I love it, Grant. You can find all of Grant's books on Amazon. How many books you have out there now?
About 20, but I've got about 5 that hasn't been published yet. They're finished, but they haven't been published.
Very nice.
I'm more interested in research than publishing.
I hear you there. I hear you there. Well, you're a great collection to add to anybody's UFO library. That is for sure. And if they don't have your books, well, shame on you. You absolutely should. Yeah. You recently put something out on social media about the Roswell alien body. What's this about?
Yeah, that was in an interview I did with Katie Page, who's worked at, she just put a book out on the Snippy, the horse, the first cattle mutilation, or the horse mutilations in 1967. And I did the first interview with her, and then we did another one because she's got so many stories. I don't know if you've had her on, but she's just fascinating and has been to the Eisenhower Library and has been to the Laramie, the library there where Leo Sprinkle's files are, and the guy who wrote the first Crash Saucer book, his files are there. And so we had a lot of chatting. We're talking about going to archives, and she's one of the few people that ever goes to archives. So I was so impressed with her knowledge and stuff like that. And then she starts talking about this thing that she knows where this body is. And this whole thing comes, I guess she's in the Denver area. And my memory's so bad that you have to go there and look on I think I posted the interview on both Twitter and Facebook within the last 72 hours. But the basic underline of the story was they sort of knew where this was, and they interviewed, there's a judge involved. So I said, well, how does a judge get involved with this? And it was in the basement of a funeral home. And it was in this crypt inside a crypt inside a crypt. And this one guy, she tells the story, this guy goes there and he opens this thing and this body's there like a little child. And so they start tracking back and they interview I think they've got some interviews from the judge, definitely got interviews from the wife of the judge, and did a lot of research on this. And she's going to be giving this lecture talking about her discovery. And at the big one, Contact in the Desert next year. And so she was talking about it, and I said, well, trying to get out of her where it was. And she almost told me the story that John Lear told me. She said, we know where it is, but you can't get to it. Something to that effect. And that's what John Lear told me back in the day, because we covered John Lear and the Area 51 story as it was happening back in '89. We published our first book in 1991. But when I was talking to John Lear about the 115 stuff, I knew that they had these two pieces, and I had heard the story about they did these experiments, and that George Knapp had said he'd seen the piece in the experiments that were being done on it and stuff like that. So I knew if George Knapp said he saw the 115 and they were doing these experiments inside this aquarium thing, yeah, then that was real. And so I knew there was a second piece, and there was a story that had been moved to a different state. So I'm trying to get out of John, like, where's the piece? And he said, it's still around. We know where it is, but you can't get to it. And I'm thinking, like, what do? You stick it in a basement of a casino in the foundation or something? It was almost the same answer. And so she's going to describe, I think, where this body is. And it sounds like, as I said, well, by the time this show's over, half hour after her show is over, the government's going to have moved it. And that's when she basically indicated, no, they can't move it. It doesn't matter if they want to move it, they can't move it. So it's pretty intriguing story. And this is one of the Roswell bodies. And there's a lot of stories about the where these bodies went and who autopsied them. I know Kit Green was chasing around, and he was trying to get this briefing. In fact, one of the documents I leaked, I thought was more significant. I leaked the Wilson Leak document, but it was the alien autopsy document. I thought it was the best document that we had leaked. And nobody wanted to do it. Even the guy who released it to me, James Rigney, he said, well, maybe we should hold that document back. I don't know about that document. I said, well, it's coming from Edgar Mitchell's collection. I'm going to put it out. Why don't we just put it out? What's the big deal? And he thought, well, it's so crazy, that alien autopsy was real and stuff like that. And so that document never got off the ground, but it's still around. It's on the internet. And that was the one where Kit Green said, yeah, this is all for real. And that, he had been given, I don't know how many opportunities to see bodies. And I heard that from Eric Davis when I knew Eric Davis back in the day, 2002, before he stopped talking to me. And he had told me the story that Kit Green, even though he was this high-level CIA guy that was the remote control, the contract for the remote control program for the CIA, he'd always wanted to be briefed on UFOs. He knew a lot about UFOs, but he wanted it because he was a physiologist. He wanted to be read in on the alien autopsy. And that's what this alien autopsy document is all about. It's about this thing where Kit actually admits, yeah, this is a real document. There's all these emails going back between him and Eric Davis and Bigelow and stuff like that. He said it was all real. And it was all this whole thing about Kit Green's sort of efforts to try to get a briefing. And he would talk about the fact that he believed they were trying to take him for a ride, that just when they were going to show him the stuff, they would say, they'd call it off. He'd go to the Pentagon. And I thought that was very intriguing, this thing. And that may be the most highly classified thing they got. So forget about what people want. The people want the stuff like, we're going to have free energy and we're going to strip the leaves off the trees twice as fast as we're doing it right now. And, the same guys that run the oil conglomerates are going to own the UFO technology and stuff like that. But I think that the most secret technology that they have is going to be the DNA of the aliens. And that's the interesting part, because this is this whole idea back in the day when they said, UFOs can't exist because you can't get here from there. And then the other thing was that they wouldn't look like us. This is this whole random theory. And this is where I say you got to start looking at the actual theory of reality, how reality is built. And our modern world says that it's all random. It's all happening by accident, that, all this stuff's happened by accident. And that's the big killer with the UFO subject, is if it's at random, it's an accident, there's no chance, absolutely no chance that they're going to look exactly like us. That would mean that their patterns, all the accidents all happened the same on their planet as happened on our planet, and they came to look the same. So that was the big thing. And that's where I say they came up with the multiple world theory. It was all these constants. There's all these constants that says the universe is fit for making life, and everything's perfectly matched, and everything's on tune, and everything's working perfectly. And this whole idea, it couldn't happen by accident. And so that's when they changed the whole thing and said, well, that's if you're a galaxy, you just got one galaxy. If there's unlimited numbers of galaxies, then anything's possible. And this is this thing, you just jock around with the numbers. You just change the numbers to change the odds that are against you. And so the DNA is going to be extremely important, this thing with the bodies, as to if it matches ours, then what do you say there? and how does it fit with ours? And I've heard rumored stories before that this is the most highly compartmentalized material, and that's confirmed by the fact that Kit Green, who ran the weird desk at the CIA on all the weird stuff, and Eric Davis was not lying to me when he told me that he just simply he could get briefed on all sorts of stuff. He just could not get briefed on the alien autopsy, even though he knew who the people did the autopsy were. And at one point they were going to bring him in on it. He was going to replace one of the scientists that was the physiologist that was involved. The guy had died, and Kit Green to be brought in. And then of course they called it off at the last minute and stuff like that. I think that is going to be the ultimate secret, is what does that DNA say? Because that basically tells us about being alone in the universe, or whether it's all connected. If it's the same as us, then you have a world that has all the patterns that just follow. The world is being built through patterns, and that there's an upper intelligence that's doing this stuff. It's not happening randomly. And that's where you get I say, when it comes down to the final disclosure, if it does get disclosed, I say it's not going to be the religious people that are going to be jumping off bridges. The stock market's not going to melt down, but I am assured that all the PhD guys who graduated at MIT are going to be fighting over the cyanide pills, thinking we paid $60,000 a year to go to school, and most of the stuff we were told was wrong. And that's where this fight is that people just can't believe.
What would they be wrong about?
Well, everything. The idea that the world is random, that the world is a materialist, that you get the whole thing with the brain. Almost 90% or more of neurologists say consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain. I don't care what you say, and it's not. And we know from experiments with the telepathy kids and stuff like that there's this big serious problem. But if your career is built, or if you've spent $50,000 a year to go to school, and you come along, you can go to any scientist, and they'll say to you, like, I remember the one when I do the DNA experiment, where Jay-Z Knight said that when she channeled Ramtha, her DNA changed, and she had 3 different labs this stuff went to. And I said, well, and people said, well, she's lying. I said, well, maybe she's lying, yeah, but let's run another test. How hard is it? We'll get Bashar, we'll get some of these people, a trans channeler, and let's see. And if it turns out that the DNA stays the same, well, then I'll say I'm wrong. But if it's not, I mean, the world gets flipped upside down. And I remember I was talking to a biologist to help me, or a guy who's a DNA expert. He said, well, Grant, let me explain to how DNA works. I said, you don't need to explain DNA. I know what you're going to say. I don't really care what people think DNA works. I said, I just want to run this experiment. I want to get a second trans channeler. And if their voice changes and their eye color changes, that's DNA. And I want to run the experiment. So that's the thing, is you have the vast majority of people in the scientific field will say we're scientists. You're not a scientist. That's when I was running the bar at the Faculty Club Lounge at the University of Manitoba. All these deans and professors and people were coming in there, and the one guy used to argue with me, and he was the dean of plant science. And then at one point I said to him, I said, you're a plant scientist. You know how to plant a rose. What the heck do you know about UFOs? And he said, nothing. And people don't realize that when you get a chemistry degree, they say, I'm a scientist. No, you're not. You're a chemist using the scientific method. And people want to say, well, I'm a scientist, and I'll tell you how this works. You haven't studied it. So that's what you're going to see in the UFO community, is that the vast majority of people who are claiming that that this is nonsense have not seen the evidence. It's like Stanton Friedman used to say, don't mix me with don't mess me around with me with the facts. I already know what's going on, stuff like that. And that's what you get, is people, their careers are on the line. That's why people don't want to go on the record, because they're afraid of tenure. People will say, don't bring up UFOs or paranormal phenomena until you're finished tenure, because you're going to lose all your grants. You are not, if you're talking about woo-woo stuff, you are not going to get any grants from the people who are running it. We're in a situation where it's like taking your paper that says there's no virgin birth, and then going to the priests, and then sending it up to the peer-reviewed cardinals and bishops, and then it goes up to the Pope. What do you think they're going to say? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go with that. I mean, they're going to cut it down. The scientists today are the priests and cardinals of this world. They have set views, and if you go across that view of the standard thing, even I was even looking the other day at Max Planck. Max Planck made this famous story about the one funeral at a time. He said, you do not convince your opponent that he's wrong by showing him the evidence. you win by when your opponent dies, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. And that's this idea of one funeral at a time. So I figured, well, Max Planck is now super famous as being the father of quantum physics. So I go back and I said, I go through AI and I said, was he ostracized in terms of his day? The people shut him down. Why would he make that statement? And it was, everybody was attacking him, saying you're absolutely insane. What are you doing? You've got it all wrong. Or when I contacted the guy who won the Nobel Prize for superconductivity, and he's the guy that he started to believe in ESP, and he made it public. He was at Cambridge University. He won the PhD. He won the Nobel Prize for physics, and he was not allowed to deal with graduate students. This is like toxic in the community of science that is running the world today. In terms of, if you cross them, you're done. I mean, your career is over.
Yeah, I was just actually going to say that. I mean, there are so many rules and guidelines now that it seems that scientists have to play, because it is about tenure. It is about grants, both public and private grants. It's literally everything except science, and about towing the company line, when science is supposed to be about exploration. These scientists should be excited about the fact that there might be life coming here. Yeah. There might be, like, you take 3i Atlas, which is behind the sun right now as we speak, heading towards Earth. I mean, Avi Loeb from Harvard was basically saying, look, I believe this is a comet or an asteroid, whatever it may be, but there is a chance, because of the way it's acting, that it could be something else. And yet he's being castigated by his own community for having to dare publicly talk about such a thought, that it could be minutely, but it could be a UFO. Yeah.
There's another example is we have the Soul Conference, which is like the big la-di-da conference now for, big people to go to and stuff like that. And Gary Nolan put out a statement, that there was going to be no woo allowed at the conference. We're not going to talk about this kind of stuff. It's not that they don't agree that consciousness is a part of this thing, but the idea was, well, first we're going to prove it's nuts and bolts and that there's actual saucers where, then we'll go to the consciousness thing. And that's the old idea that you keep doing the same thing over and over again for 80 years and you don't get anywhere, and you just keep doing it, believing that you're going to come to a different conclusion. And so he has a statement that goes completely contrary to that. He said, why, if you're a good scientist, why would you take anything off the table? That's the actual rule, is you can take, but it doesn't really fall into anybody's category. Everybody knows it's a toxic issue. And so, I mean, what does it belong to? The chemists, the physicists, the astronomers? I remember it used to be the thing about astronomy, and it's like, why are we talking to astronomers for? Like, what would an astronomer know about UFOs? Absolutely nothing. He can count stars and color spectrums of stars and stuff like that. He knows nothing about UFOs. That there is no field. There's a field of ufology, but it's not an academic field. So it's like when you go into, if you want to get research money, you have to get some faculty, whether it's chemistry or physics or biology or somebody, to take it on to request the grants. And they're not about to do it. They've got their own little games that they're playing and their little contracts and stuff like that. And it's all this whole idea is that it's hard enough to get grants as it is without taking on this toxic issue, or where Jimmy Carter tried to get NASA to redo the Blue Book thing. And they basically said, you cut our budget, and we're having a hard enough time financing what we got right now. And we just want to take this on. And they didn't say, but it was a PR nightmare. Nobody wanted to touch the thing because, and it's slowly changing, but still it doesn't fit into anybody's box. Everybody's got their little things, what they're doing. And ufology doesn't really fit into any academic faculty that you can actually go and get material. So it's always going to be coming from the bottom up, from us pushing the issue and the odd person coming and sort of agreeing with us. But the other problem we have is that we have the UFO community is always this Rodney Dangerfield problem, that we always figure like we're Rodney Dangerfield and we don't get any respect. And so we try to latch on to PhD guys. And we used to call it at the Factor Club Lounge, piled higher and deeper, that they were no different than anybody else. They were just actually more specialized in their field than anybody else. But just because you're got a PhD in chemistry doesn't mean you know anything about biology. My office was in the chemistry building, and I knew that the chemists didn't go into the biology building. They didn't go into the zoology building. They didn't. They had no contact with those people. You're living in your own little world. And that's the problem that you have, is that it doesn't fit into anybody's little world, and they're all working on their thing, and nobody wants to take on this issue that they know can actually cause you trouble. So it's going to be up to us to put the material out. And I'm in an ideal situation. I have enough money. I don't need anybody's money. I don't really care. I never cared what anybody thought. And I don't read the comments on Twitter and Facebook, and I just put my stuff up and stuff like that. And I don't have anybody telling me what to do. I don't have a reputation or a degree to back up or to try to defend. And that's the problem you get, is if you've got something you got that you can lose because of this, people are very, very hesitant to step out and take a position, even though, like in the Soul Conference, they admit that this is true, that there is this consciousness element to this thing. But we'll take that down the road. Right now, we need to get lots of PhDs speaking. We need to try to please, and you're not going to appease these guys. Either the last guy you're going to convince, because they live in their own little world, and it's a steep hill to climb in terms of figuring out UFO stuff. And you're not going to figure it out because you got a PhD. You have to look at the evidence, and there's a lot of evidence. And I say after 50 years, it just gets more and more and more complex. That's the one thing I know for sure. This thing is going to be a million times more complex than people think it is. It's just unbelievable. This is not simple extraterrestrials lost in space.
We have about 3.5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Grant, as we move forward towards trying to figure out what is actually here, what signs do you see that this is a phenomena that has been continually here and continues to kind of push itself around anywhere it wants to go? Because these days, with AI moving as fast as it is, we really can't trust any videos anymore.
Yeah, you can't trust AI either. I mean, Destin and I have done a few shows on that, where because we've done a lot, and it's even the one tonight. They said, I'll give you the places to go. I said, no, it's your job. What are you doing? And give me places to go. And it said, in my experience with AI, you give me all these footnotes for things, and you go and check them, and they don't exist. And then they apologize. They give you another page. You go check that, and it doesn't exist either. I said, it's called, now they've even got a word for it, where it's hallucinating. AI hallucinates, and it lies. You just can't believe how much this stuff lies, because it's left brain. It's the same as the skeptic. It's a left brain thing, and it's just filling in gaps, and it makes up all this kind of stuff. But what we're getting is a situation where we are moving headway in terms of understanding. But it's this idea that it's not going to be the physical thing that people think it is. That's where this nature reality comes in, where you got to go back to understanding that consciousness is primary. And all the major quantum physicists said this at the beginning of the century, and then someone told them to shut up and calculate, ignore that problem. And that's I think where we've got to solve the problem. And the academics and people are just in a position where they're ignorant on the subject. They really don't know much more than they've read a book or they read an article and stuff like that. And I'm trying to do what I can. And the AI is advantageous that you can actually pull a lot of stuff that you have to check. But it has the ability. It's unbelievable. And this new notebook thing is just like unbelievable. I've never seen anything that can do what this thing can do. And so I'm optimistic, but I think it's this idea that you got to change the worldview. We're taking it backwards. We're going from UFOs, and you got to start from how does the world actually work? What is the basis of the universe? What's primary, and how did things get created, and how did things unravel? And then it makes a lot of sense. It starts to agree with a lot of the stuff in Eastern religions, and a lot of stuff from Judaism from the early days, the mystical traditions and stuff like that. Then it starts to make sense. And I think I am sort of have enough that I'm happy with where I've gotten in terms of solving the thing. But the vast majority of people don't even realize there's a game going on. They're living lives of quiet desperation, and it's a thing of entertainment. It's something, if you watch a show or a documentary, it's kind of cool, but they're not going to change their life to move down and study UFOs or find out what the implications are.
It's funny you mentioned that because John Greenwald from the Black Vault actually made a comment on X today saying, it's, I'm paraphrasing here. It's funny, Grant, how many people, and it wasn't addressed to you, just to the
Yeah,
public, but
yeah.
how many current ufologists are now taking a look at ufology prior to 2017 when the whole UAP saga began, and they're acting like all of this is brand new information, like nobody has ever researched these topics before. And I think it's absolutely quite hilarious. But we're going to talk about that when we return. Grant Cameron on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We have him for another hour on the Mighty SOR. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Grant, we got about 6 minutes. I'm going to put you in the green room. Your camera is frozen too. So I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Be right back, everybody. right, I am back. And we'll bring Grant back in.
Change locations. And I'm still frozen.
No, now you don't have any camera.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Hang
Yeah.
on.
You still look good. You're pretty.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. There you go. Remove from stage. How do you do this thing here? How do you check your camera?
If you go down to the little cog at the bottom,
Little cog, yeah.
click on that and click on camera
Camera.
on the left-hand side.
Okay. Integrate camera. Mirror my camera. What's going on here?
While you're working on that, I'm going to say hello and thank you to T-Bone, Lori, Mennonite Abe, and Pam Harris for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. And we got about 10 seconds. Don't worry about it, Grant.
Yeah. No, it's not coming back.
Oh, that's all right. We'll figure it.
We'll play with it. Yeah.
Here we go, buddy.
Technology.
Yep.
I'll
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're so proud to bring you tonight's show because I know you love the weird and strange here each and every night on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lorene is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in Grant Cameron as he is talking about UFOs tonight and everything in between. Grant, you can find his books on Amazon. He's got, about a dozen or so, maybe 24 out there, maybe more. Hanging on out for your UFO collection. Grant, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me back. I think I got my camera going here.
Beautiful.
I moved locations.
You are a beautiful human being, my friend. Beautiful
technical genius here.
That's how we work it in the Shire around here. Appreciate you. All right. We talked about the fact right before the break that disclosure is kind of dying. That John Greenwald from the blackvault.com, which is a collection site of UFO and conspiracy notes that have been released by the government. He's now saying, he's kind of shocked that this 2017 crowd, the UAP crowd, as Nicole Sakic calls them, the 2017s, really seem to push the limit on ufology, because according to them, it really didn't start until the 2004 Nimitz incident. But now they're kind of taking a look at behind 2004, going back in history to the 90s, 80s, and far beyond, and thinking, well, hey, there was actual UFO events prior to 2004. Should we be shocked by this?
I'm not sure. Things change pretty quickly. I described this whole idea. There's this idea about how we manifest the universe, and we're manifesting it with mind and stuff like that. And I say, anybody doesn't believe that's happening, take a look at the United States of America in 2015 and now 2025. And whether you're on one side or the other, tell me it hasn't changed. It's absolutely a different country altogether. That things can move, and people, that's why I say, like, in terms of academics, they really don't read anything. And even the UFO people, most people will have books and they'll buy people's books, but they don't read any of them. And you have a situation now where you have the attention span is 7 seconds on the internet. People don't read books anymore. They want audio books. They don't want to read books. And so we're in this sort of situation where it's very easy to change people's minds. Things can move very, very quickly in terms of TikTok and different things that kids are into. And that's why I've tried to move from the old school into starting. I didn't want to do the YouTube and the stuff that's coming now. These little short. My videos are now these ones I do AI. They're 6 or 7 minutes long, and the audios are about 15 minutes long. And that's this idea that people's attention span is just dropping more as we go along. So yeah, I'm not surprised that the 2017 kids that they don't realize what happened before. Even UFO people don't realize what happened before. And I've always maintained, I said, I've been in this long enough to know that it's not the same world it was in 1975. You have no clue what it was like in 1975. And that's the important thing, because what you realize is that the phenomena is morphing. It's not the same phenomena. 1895, 1896, 1897, there was 10,000 UFO sightings, but they were not like orbs like they are now. They were wooden ships with propellers and big, huge lights, which were very strange because the battery wouldn't be invented till about 5 years later. And they had balloons on them and stuff like this. And these guys hanging off of ropes that were doing this rhymes and riddles stuff and saying they were from Mars. And we believed, oh yeah, these guys are all coming from Mars. And then the Foo Fighters of World War II, they were there, and they're on the edges of planes, these little tiny balls. Then after World War II, it turned to the green fireballs. Then those all disappeared. I go, well, where do the Foo Fighters go? Where do the green fireballs go? And then the Adamski crafts moved onto the scene, and the Adamski crafts were there. And then you had the Betty and Barney Hill with the windows. There are no UFOs anymore with windows. That happened only for a period of time. You had the angel hair, which all the 2017s would have no clue what you're talking about. You're talking about angel hair. There was angel hair in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Then it went away. Then you had the cattle mutilation started in 67, and they sort of faded away. And there's the odd one, but that's basically stopped. Then you had the crop circle start in 1982, and that sort of went go. And then the triangles came when I started in 75. I had a triangle sighting in 76. That was one of the first triangle sightings. All the triangles started. Then now we've got the orbs, and people don't realize it's changing. It's like the beings are turning the book. They're turning the pages, and they just go this. That's why I said this thing where they told me, they said, don't worry, we know how to land the plane. It's like they've done this on 1,000 different planets. You say, where'd the green fireballs go? Where did the Foo Fighters go? Well, they're on another planet that's 100 years before us. And when those they're finished on that planet, then they're going to send in the Adamski crafts, and they're going to send in the window crafts and all this kind of stuff. And that's what people don't realize. If you don't realize the entirety of UFO history, you don't realize that this thing has been morphing, and that, as Barbara Streisand's stepson, Chris Peters, told me, he said they told him that when we come into your world, we go into your head. We see what's in your head, and it is with that we build a lesson. So if you're coming at this time in space, then they're going to appear as aliens from other planets, because we're in the space age. And before that, you didn't have that kind of stuff. Or if you take a look at the reports, and this is where I'm going to talk about a case that I just did an interview today. But if you look back before 1961. There basically were no grays. And people say, oh, no, there was grays. I said, no. Nancy Tremaine was the first gray. July, 2 months before Betty and Barney Hill, she and her girlfriend were the first two to talk about the grays. Then the grays came on board, and I heard a story about a guy. They said, we got to talk to this German guy. Rolf is his first name. They said, you got to talk to this guy. He saw grays in 1942. I said, okay, I'll take you up on it. So I phoned him and I interviewed him today, and we went very carefully, and I was very careful not to lead him. So I said, okay, what happened? And he said, I was 7 years old, and these beings were in my room, and I could sense. And he said, why was I woken up? Like, well, why did I wake up when these beings were in there? And that's always this sort of thing where you start to understand what the beings are actually doing, is why do the aliens actually wake you up and say, Dave, wake up. And you go, oh, look at me, I'm an evil alien. And what they're trying to do is trying to get you to dissociate. They're scared to live in daylight, so you dissociate, then they can take you. They grab your astral body and they move. So this guy said these beings are in the room, and he was really puzzled, like how they got in his room. He couldn't see them. It was dark. And then he said he heard the Buddhist. He was on the border of Switzerland. He heard the Buddhist temple. They were ringing the bell 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's when these beings left, and they went through the wall. And he said, I said, were they physical? Yeah, they were physical. They went through the window, just right through the window. And he was watching them. And I said, well, describe them. I said, did they have any clothes on? And I asked this. I asked you, remember a couple of years ago, I asked this. And I say, did they have any clothes on? And he goes, no. And it's like, is that not weird? He's got no clothes on? And well, maybe he had painted clothes. And that idea, people think maybe they painted their skin with like, it looks like clothes. But I said, do they have any sex organs? Nope. And then I said, so you saw him, if you saw him going through the window, then you saw them from the back. Yeah. And I said, well, describe. And he said they had pointed feet. The most strange thing was they had these pointed feet. So that doesn't sound like a gray. Then I said, well, you didn't see their faces. No, I didn't see their faces. And then I said, well, what about the heads? They have big heads. No, they didn't have big heads. I go, thank you. They're not grays. And this is the whole thing. So when he told me this sighting, that's all I knew, that he had this sighting. And then I found out just before the interview that he had this photograph. And again, photographs you mentioned before, you can't really go anywhere with photographs because you can make anything appear. But it was a pretty well photographed. BC, look from East Vancouver, looking out over Grouse Mountain. I think it's the Grouse Mountain is the skiing one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's against Grouse Mountain, and it's clear as day. I mean, it looks like pretty clear saucer type shape. There's no not off in the distance or anything like that. And so I said to him, I said, well, what other weird things? Because that's, you get these patterns that if somebody's had a UFO sighting, like especially if they've been in the room, it's not the only thing that happened in their life. We know this by looking at the patterns. That's when you talk to the experiencers, you realize there are these patterns. So I said, hey, so anything else happen? And he sort of smiles and he goes, I've had lots of weird stuff happen. I said, well, start telling me about it. Now, how about poltergeist? Oh, yeah, poltergeist. He starts telling me all these bizarre stories, how he got this UFO photograph. Then he tells me about this one. I haven't even looked at the email yet. He sent me the photos. He sent these photos of a star. The thing was shaped like a star. And I said, so you get photographs of it? And it's like daylight. And he said, yeah, I got photographs. I said, really? Can you send me the photographs? He said, yeah. And he sent them. I haven't looked at them yet. And then he ran into someone in the States who claimed that he'd seen the same thing. And he showed him. I said, well, did he have a photograph? Yeah. And did he show you the photograph? Yeah. And I said, and it's exactly the same thing. So you have this case where there's 3 taken here in BC and then this guy in the States, and it's the same object. And so that's the whole thing. I went through this thing, and by the time he's finished, he wanted to tell more stories. And we'd gone on for about an hour and a half, and he's telling me all these bizarre stories. And that's why I say you start to realize that this is very complex, that everything is connected, that if you start getting this, people are going to be psychic. They're going to have Sasquatch appearances. They're going to be ghost hunting. They're going to be down the rabbit hole on everything. And it's all the same thing, that it drags us in, and people want to parse it. Like it's this UFO thing from 2000, from Nimitz on. And the more you look at it, the more you realize, no, that's not really what's going on. And especially if you go back, like if you take a look at a lot of the ones with the free survey, you can take a look at the number of people who claim that the being was in their last life. And that was like 24% or something. Chris Blesswell was one of them. If the being says, I was in your last lifetime, it's a new game. This ain't aliens. This ain't ETs. This is something very, very complex, or where they're following you around for your whole life. And or where I talked to Betty Andreasen, and I say to Betty Andreasen, who saw she and Bob Luca, her husband, first saw the beings. They both saw the being in 1946. And I said, so Betty, you're 1946. You saw the first being, and now you're like 80 some years old. You got grandchildren. You went from this little tiny girl to this old grandmother. Did the aliens get any older? And then there's this long pause, and then Bob Luca said, no. But then aliens live a long time. This justification of why the alien never got any older. And when you start looking at the patterns and talking to the experience, that's when you realize all these bizarre patterns. Or, things like UFO experiences, when they've had an encounter, they come back and they burn out electrical stuff. They blow out light bulbs and stuff like that. And so do near-death experience people. They have that same problem. They can't wear watches. They can't touch computers and stuff like that. And then you start to realize, like, whoa, what's going on here? And it just gets more complex and more complex, and more the idea that all the paranormal phenomena are all the same thing. They're just coming in different ways. So in 1897, because we were in that age of just before flight, and so they were coming in wooden ships. And so what happened to those guys? Like, did they actually come from Mars? Do you actually believe? And people believe they're coming from another planet, but they started by saying we're from Mars and Venus. And then when we suddenly realized there's no chance they're from Mars and Venus, then they said, oh, from Zeta Reticuli. And then, Sherry Wilde gets them, where they say they're from Andromeda. And then her publisher said, well, they can't be from Andromeda. Sherry, you said they're grays, right? She said, yeah, they're Zetas. Well, they got to be from Zeta Reticuli then. Then she asked the alien, she says, okay, so let me ask you a question. What's going on? Are you an alien or what's going on? And then he says, no, that would not best describe who I actually am. I'm an etheric being on a mission in the cosmos for the Creator. Or when I talked to the beings in England, they wanted to be interviewed. So I went through this channeler and she was talking to them. And I said, so are you aliens? And they go, would you like us to be aliens? We could do that if you want. We could even take you to our planet. But no, we're not aliens. We've always been here. You're the visitor. So then I talked to Nancy Tremaine, the first abductee in the modern era. And I said, Nancy, ask your alien, ask Mr. Everybody's got a name for them. Mr. Ask Mr. If he's an alien. And she comes back and he says, I'm neither alien to this planet nor any other planet. I've always been here. It's the same idea. And that's when you start to realize that there may only be here and now. There may not be any out there, which is what Jim Semivan says when he makes his statement. And you got to remember, he had the 7-hour briefing and he says, there does not appear to be any there. And I say to people, Jim Semivan got the briefing. What the heck is he talking about? What does he mean when he says there does not appear to be any there? It's this idea that it gets so weird. And then you even go back and you start looking at the background with Tom DeLonge. So he helps Tom DeLonge start the thing. And what did Tom DeLonge call him? They didn't. They said, you can't, the generals told him, do not call them ETs, call them the others. And that's the thing. So when you get the government statements, you see them parsing words. They say, we have no proof of extraterrestrial intelligence or technology. They're exactly right, because they know that it's probably not going to be extraterrestrial. It may be interdimensional. It may be whatever, but that's where they can use this thing that we don't have any proof of extraterrestrials. And I believe neither does anybody else. Nobody can prove these things are actually extraterrestrials. And Jim Semivan, of course, was confronted with that about the bodies and the crafts. And he says, yes, we have bodies and crafts. But that doesn't mean you know what you're dealing with. Just because you got bodies and crafts doesn't mean you know what you're dealing with. And you have all these things about ports and manifestations where things are popping in, or Leslie Kane, where she's at a physical medium ceremony where she's there and she sees this like 3, 4, 5 times or whatever, where the hand appears in front of her and she's got the yellow light, the red light under the table with the glass table, and she's looking at this ectoplasm coming out, and this hand forms, and she touches the hand. She says, this is real. It's a real hand, softer than a regular hand, and warmer, and I can feel the knuckles and the tendons, and the thing bangs on the table and disappears. So what is that, an extraterrestrial hand? No, stuff is coming from a higher vibration and dropping into our vibration, and you get the bottom line is the world seems to be a world where it's all vibration. There is no out there. It's all one thing. It's just a bunch of waveforms going around, and it goes through our brain, and our brain creates a world that we think is out there, but it's all happening inside our head. And that's when you spent years and you sort of give up on the UFO thing, we being extraterrestrial, and you start to realize that the experiencers are being told this over and over again, how this is working, and the fact that we are sort of misguided as to what we're doing. We're just jumping on the first sort of thing, but it works because people like to hear stories. They like to hear, stories, and they don't care if they're extraterrestrials. You can use that word, and everybody goes along with it because that gets some clicks. Not as much as the evil alien thing gets clicks, but that's what's changed for me is that the 2017 people are, sort of out to lunch as to what they know, but the vast majority of the UFO community doesn't realize it either. They don't realize that, the first Kenneth Arnold, which wasn't the first sighting, but Kenneth Arnold had an owl. He believed that these things were alive, that he was seeing flying and stuff like that. He had all sorts of orbs in his house after this happened. And we just sort of ignore all that sort of stuff. And we don't realize that it's this complex phenomena that follows people around, and they become intuitive. They're able to heal. 50% of all people who claim they've had contact with non-human intelligence said either they or somebody in their family was healed, and that they can heal people. And it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder. And we have to go, I think, to the basic, the fact that the world is not made out of nuts and bolts. It's made out of consciousness, and we are creating it with the dual slit experiment. That we are manifesting it with our thoughts. That something doesn't come into the physical world until it's measured or observed, and that's what we're doing. And that's why you can't drop this on people, because even people who are listening here who are UFO people, their eyes will be rolling back in their heads. They'll just go like, I can't take this. This is crazy stuff. I mean, we got to go a long way down the road yet before people are going to start to understand what this is, because the UFO community can't get it. So you're absolutely not going to convince the American public if you tell them the real story of what's going on, this bizarre aspect of the story.
Grant, we got 4.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Grant, a lot of people within the political community have said, look, when you look into this, there seems to be a religious connotation to this, but they will not go into detail of what that is, whether or not these aliens or UFOs are demonic, whether they're angel ships, whether they are time travelers or what have you. But they keep saying that there is more to this than what people actually think. What is your opinion of all of this?
Okay, well, let me do the demonic one first. I always say people believe that they're demonic. I don't believe there's any good or bad. It's just if it's a reincarnation world, everything's an experience. You either learn from it, you don't learn from it. Everybody's going to die. You're going to have that bad experience. You're going to have all this sort of stuff. But the people will say, well, you're like Jim Semivan. Oh, they came into my bedroom and they violated my rights and all this sort of stuff. And I go like, the minute they dropped 2 atomic bombs and firebomb a bunch of cities and killed 900,000 people, firebombing stuff like that, give me a call. I'll look at the evil alien petition. Until then, we've met the enemy and he is us. We are the craziest. Like Bashar says, why would you land? Why would we land when everybody's crazy and's got a gun? It's like we're the enemy. We're the ones that are causing the problem. So that's the first one. But there's a spiritual element, and that's when you look at the 4,200 experiencers. So there's data, and what we do in the world is we try to kill the data. And the idea that you're supposed to have is you never kill the data. The data doesn't change. If the data doesn't agree with your crazy theory, you throw the crazy theory out. And so what we have is a situation where if you look at 4,200 experiences that were done by the Free Survey, you see 24% of them claim that the being was with them in their last lifetime. That's spiritual. That's something that points in a very specific direction. 25% they were talked to about reincarnation. 70% say they were spiritually enlightened by this thing, that their life changed. You get all these sort of things about how their life changed and how they believe that this is their family, and that piles of them had 80% had out-of-body experiences. 37% of them had near-death experiences, which you say, well, it's a random. You saw a UFO randomly, and then you had this near-death experience randomly. Like, no, these are these 37% is like the national average is 5%. So this is like whatever 7-8 times the national average. And you start to realize that there's all these components that make it look like it's a spiritual type experience. That's what it basically is going to come down to when you get these reincarnation things and the out-of-body experience stuff and the out-of-body experience stuff like that. It's not a material world. That's the bottom line, is that the materialistic paradigm, which is believed by the vast majority of science, is going down. It's you got to move into this post-materialistic world and realize that consciousness is primary, and that the vast majority of the modern quantum physicists who started this whole show, that invented all the quantum physics rules, they all believe this, that it is the Easterners had it right. It's the whole idea of Maya. Everything's a vibration. When God or the spirit or consciousness moves, there's a vibration and the illusion starts. It's all vibration. And nothing can deny that in science. It's all vibration. That's all there is a bunch of vibrations. And our head puts this story together that makes it look like it's solid. It's not solid. We know that for a fact. We know it's all vibration. And that's what these beings, whoever they are telling us.
So if we put it that way, do you think that this has become a good versus evil? We got 1 minute to go.
Well, people want it that way. That's the old idea, that if you're going to do a movie in Hollywood, you want the good versus evil. You don't want Dave having love, and he loves his kids, and he loves his wife, and he loves everybody around, and he loves the Sasquatches, and he loves this, and God gets his popcorn and walks out of the movie theater and says, "This is boring. I'm going next door, and they got Star Wars going next door. It's the up and the down and the good guys and the bad guys." And every movie, that's what Chris Bledsoe didn't get his movie done, because they kept wanting to put reptilians into the end of the movie, and he said, "No, there's going to be no evil aliens in the movie." But they wanted that because the movie won't sell. If it's just him talking to an angel and these messages and stuff, nobody's going to pay to go to see that. People want the good and the bad, and they want the good guy and the bad guy, and the good guy kills the bad guy and is victorious and waves the flag and all this kind of stuff. That's what you want, because that's what sells. And there's only 3 rules in the United States, probably Canada as well. Number 1 rule is money. Number 2 rule is money. Number 3 rule is money. It's about making money.
It always is about making money. And you know what? Hey, if they could get more defense budget on this, well, you know what? They're going to do it, Grant.
Yeah, and you got. That's why you got to spin the evil alien, because if it's a good alien, they're going to tell you leave the room and don't let the door hit you on the way out.
That's right.
Why would we care?
As we've said many a times on this show, fear sells.
Exactly.
And that's really what it comes down to. Grant Cameron, we have him for another half an hour here on Spaced Out Radio as we talk UFOs with the great one right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
Good background. You got a good background, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's actually, I set up the studio that we could have people in here now and actually have some room and just need to kind of lonely up here, to be blunt.
Yeah, you have to invite some people, but you're not really in a place where you can get somebody to come down every night.
No, not at all.
But you'll be doing shows next May. You'll be doing their special guest appearances or whatever. And I don't think anybody really does studio. Does anybody do studio anymore? I remember in George Norrie, I think we were one of the few people who ever did it in studio.
No, I don't know. I don't know how much I care anymore because everything's just done at home now, right?
Yeah. That's but that's advantageous. I mean, it's like that. There's an overflow of material. You have to sort of learn to. I'm unfortunately I got these problems with my memory. I mean, I just like I could do so much, but because it's just overwhelming. It's just like you don't know what are they doing now, and where did I put that thing, and how many have I not posted? Just like it's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And yet the stuff doesn't really move. It's because we're into the consciousness most of the stuff in the theory of reality, and people just not interested. It's not. I guess I got to find some way to get some evil aspect to it or something,
right?
Witches and warlocks or something, or my banana. It's not my banana thing, eh? My people aren't interested in that either. You take the green banana, and you hold it for 2.5 minutes, and it'll mummify. I'm doing my second one. I got one that's about 7 years old. It's like this thing is, you don't believe this paranormal? Explain this. It's like even science. You try to say, people say I fight with the science. I'm fighting with science a lot now, but I say science doesn't explain anything. If you take a serious look, all they're doing is describing. Nobody can explain how things work. They just describe how things. This happens. This happens. This happens. Well, who's behind it? Who did that? I mean, who put the cell together? Who's rotating the electrons around the proton? Where did it learn to do that? And it's like it just where I'm headed. But most people still want stories and photos. Like I was shown 4 photos. Chinese guy, I think it was, at the one meeting in Vancouver, showed me these photos, and I looked at it. I went, Photoshop. It's like it was so good. It was like 4 UFOs over Vancouver, and one had the light coming off the side of it, like a reflection of the sun. It's like, wow. But what are you going to do with it? It's like the one that Rolf had as well. I mean, that looks like you could have been a Photoshop thing. It's just like clear as day. Well, you can't go anywhere with that stuff anymore. It's just, but people still will fight for it, and they get sucked into the old thing, which they're waiting for disclosure tomorrow. So they figure that this video is going to do it. This photo, this is disclosure, and everybody jumps on it. And then someone says it's a hoax, and then everybody goes, I knew it was a hoax, and wait for the next one and get sucked into the next little rabbit hole of somebody putting something else up. And
I love it. We got about 1:20.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Now it's a different problem in terms of trying to sort the material and trying to eat. It helps with this. You can sort of write out stuff that you got a chapter or a page or something you want to. It doesn't make any sense. It's interesting. But then my buddy there told me, he says, well, now you know where it comes from. It's like, I told you I was working for the military. And it's like, holy, I never thought of that. That's all this. that they would have been on these large language models for the last 20 years, and that they're leaking some of the technology to people. And so you can imagine what the military has if this is the stuff they've got, where you can put 350 books and it will go through the books and pull out anything you want out of these 350 books. It's just like, wow.
All right, Grant, we got about 25 seconds. Big thank you tonight to Jeff, Steve Garvey, Mel WD40, Maggie, T-Bone, Lori, Mennonite Abe, and Pam Harris for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. You can join our YouTube membership as well as shop at our store and our website. And if you don't, well, okay. Nothing I can do. Here we go, everybody. We're at the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio and into the second half now. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for coming on in, putting your tinfoil on, and enjoying the night with us. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, we introduce Grant Cameron. He is one of the best UFO research over the last number of decades, based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, formerly of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Go Jets, go for him. And I'm stuck as an Oilers fan that just wins too. Grant, welcome.
Thanks. I want to make something before I forget. I mean, there's a number of people that have contacted me from Canada, from BC, who listen to your show. So I lost track of two of them. One was from Kamloops, wanted to ask some questions, and the other guy was from Langley, I believe. So if those people want to recontact me, I do have this problem with my memory now, where I got very bad short-term memory. And so anybody who's listening from Vancouver, there's a couple of groups now where we get together and, share stories and talk and stuff like that. So I'm surprised, Dave, how many people I've gotten from Canada who listen to me on your show and have contacted me, because I guess there's really not that many places in Canada to go.
Well, we appreciate them tuning on in, and they got to come into our chat rooms and say hello. Yep. That's all we ask in return. Hopefully they've hit subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Because that would really suck if they didn't.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of people out there, but as you know, the problem with Vancouver is it's so big and so spread out that, and unless it's in your backyard, you're not going to go travel an hour in traffic to go to a meeting. But some of the best cases I've got, I'm just waiting we actually met a medium where I'm getting into this really interesting stuff where I want to see where the table tipping. I said, you're doing table tipping? She said, yeah. I said, well, can I come? Yes. Oh, yeah. Sure. And medium, she has 12 mediums that link up on Zoom, and they all just go around. And I said, can I see that? She's, yeah, you can be a sitter. You can just watch. I'm going like, wow, it's just fascinating. Because if I go back to when I first started, people ask, I would have no clue what I would have done if I hadn't had the UFO sighting. Because to me, it was, I didn't know what I was going to do in university. I couldn't figure out what a function was in calculus. The guy wouldn't tell me, and I quit calculus. I said, this is nonsense. What am I going to do with this stupid chemistry stuff and all this stuff? How do you make money out of this stuff? And especially the calculus, where all the numbers disappeared, and it was like function this, function that. And I'm grateful that I fell down this rabbit hole, because it's been a life where I wouldn't change it for anybody's life. A billionaire, nothing. I mean, it's just like, it's been so interesting. The people you've met, the stories, and you realize you're on the leading edge of what in 1,000 years will be the biggest story. It'll be acknowledged as the biggest story of all times. And you and I are actually the old, like analogy, where not only do we know there's a football game going on, we're inside the football game and we're on the field, and most people live in lives of quiet desperation and haven't got a clue there's even a football game going on, that this amazing story is going on. So I'm just so grateful that I got to play this game. And I just spent my life trying to work just to make enough money so I could do my research. And I wasn't really trying to take over any companies or anything like that. I just had no ambition to do that kind of stuff. So it's been a wonderful life, and I'm sure for you as well. The people you meet, like Ovechkin. I mean, you know, when you meet the people in this field or in other fields and stuff like that, you realize that most people, you know, they live lives where they don't meet anybody famous. They don't have any stories to tell. They're just living their lives trying to survive, or they're, you know, wandering around the world as a refugee with no place to go or stuff like that. And I just feel so grateful to even like the idea that I would be on a podcast or somebody be interviewing me. It was like, come on, I never even crossed my mind. It was just something that dragged me in, and it was the whole idea was it random? I don't think it was, and I think I asked this guy today. This guy that had this sighting in 1942 in Germany, and then he started telling me about all these other things that happened, the synchronicities, all this kind of stuff. And I said, "Hey, do you think this happened by accident?" And everybody knows, no way, it happened by accident. It's like, you know, this is all prearranged, and that's what you start to get when you start talking to enough experiences. You realize that this is unfolding almost like we all came in to play a role. As Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage, all the men and women are but actors. They have their entrances and exits, and each man plays many roles. And our higher self is out there, and our little puppet is down here playing this little game. And it really doesn't matter whether we win or lose. It's just that we came in, and did you learn anything while you were here? And I just so grateful for having been down this path and meeting people like you and many of the experiencers and people that I like Lori, who's on tonight. I've known her for many years now, and very grateful for the support they've given me and stories that people have given me. So I couldn't ask for more.
3I Atlas. This is a comet / asteroid that is right behind the sun right now, and many people Grant have been making comments about whether or not this is an alien craft. Avi Loeb has kind of discussed it a little bit. Do you think that there is a possibility that this is some sort of alien ship, or is it just something natural that seems to be doing some weird things, and it's weird to us, and we claim it's alien because we've never seen something that far into space, you know, act like this before?
Okay. Well, I don't really follow sightings, so I really haven't followed this because it doesn't really matter if it turns out to be extraterrestrial or not, but nobody's going to prove it one way or the other. But I do have the interesting story I do have is I interviewed Jimmy Blanchette for about the 5th or 6th time. I'm just fascinated with his work. He does a thing, and hopefully it'll be coming up on my YouTube channel within the next week. It'll be on my podcast for sure. So I do Jimmy Blanchette, and he does the Atlas thing, and he takes the numbers, and he does all this thing with the 144 and stuff like that, and he takes the date December the 19th. There's going to be an alignment. The last time this alignment happened was 1850 something, and it was the biggest solar storm that ever happened in 1850, whatever. And the idea was that if the storm is as big as it was then, everything's gone. Everything's going out. And then he starts looking at the distance between that day, Atlas and the Earth, Atlas and the Moon, Atlas and the Sun, and it all comes up to this 144 stuff. And I was going like, wow, it's just he shows this, and you go, oh, maybe there's something to this. I don't know what it is, but you got to watch this Jimmy Blanchette when he does a whole segment for me on this thing with all this mathematical stuff, and it was like it all came out the same. He originally started with the code on the Rendlesham Forest thing, and the distance between all these 7 or 8 locations, whatever, and all this mathematics that comes and shows this precision mathematics that it all links as if whoever the aliens or whoever came down and they built the pyramid, and there's all these hidden messages in the pyramid, and then there's this other message that is clear as day that you can see from his mathematics that all these things around the Earth show this mathematical precision that show exactness as if that pattern was put down 10,000 years ago, and Jimmy Blanchette finally figured it out. His stuff just amazes me, and he does a thing on Atlas. I would encourage people to listen to this interview, the last interview I do with him, because he talks about December 19th. So keep it on your calendar, and let's see what happens. He's talking about this alignment, and the numbers fit. It's just staggering when you see the numbers that he comes up with the location of the atlas when it is on that day where we are, and it's just like it couldn't be random. There's no way this could be random. It's unbelievable.
Let's get to some audience questions here, Grant, because we got a few of them.
Yeah.
And we Runo down under wants to know, are you following the whistleblowers?
Sort of. Yeah, I was interested in the Skywatch whistleblowers because they stole my idea. I wrote the book on flying the saucer with the mind, and suddenly these guys come out and said, "Oh, it's psionics, and we're controlling crafts, and we're bringing crafts in." And it's like, "That was my idea." Like, you're just rewording it and using the idea. So I was interested in them, and I'm trying to figure out, like, where did the psionics thing come from? And I'm interested in David Grush. My big thing that I'm interested in them has always been the same thing. The first book I wrote was on whistleblowers like Bob Lazar. And I believe Bob Lazar was a setup. Bob Lazar was set out there to get the idea that there was UFOs at Area 51, but because he was such a crazy nutcase, nobody would ever believe him. And the government didn't realize the fact that George Knapp would suddenly pick up the story and it would suddenly go viral because there was no longer a crazy guy carrying the story. So I've always had this thing. So I'm looking at that aspect of, is this the government dropping stuff? Because I've had a lot of contacts with Ron Pandolfi, and I know when the To the Stars Academy first came up that afternoon, I got a comment through Dan Smith as to what he said. He said, I know all of them. I know all of them. In fact, Mellon has been in it since 1980s. So he knew all these guys were. And then he wouldn't tell me who, he wouldn't admit, he said that Jim Semivan didn't exist. I'm going, why would he deny Jim Semivan? And it was this idea that there's this game being played, that the government is trying to get the story out without spilling the milk, where they're dropping the stuff. So I'm always interested in that. Where's this story coming from? Who gave them permission? Because you'll hear Lou Elizondo and these people will say, oh, I can't mention that because I've got a security clearance, which means somebody's listening to their story. Somebody knows the story above them. And if they cross the line, they're going to get, Lukatsky said, I'm an expert at moving highly classified material down to lower levels. That's his idea, that the government is trying to drop this thing, trying to get in control of the story, trying to control the story so they're out in front of the story. I have that. The other thing that I always say that you can see now, you've got this Trump's former national security guy could be spending the next 200 years in jail for this violation of his talk on his email, classified material, and they're prosecuting him. And the question to me has always been, how do these guys get, this is the most highly classified secret in the United States. How do these guys get to walk out and say, oh, I don't agree with the policy. I'm going to tell people what's going on, and they're not in jail. How can these people not be in jail? They've got to be in jail. This is insane to me that these guys can walk out and just say, I'm a whistleblower. It's like saying I'm a whistleblower on nuclear stuff. I don't agree with how they're building this new nuclear weapon, and I don't agree with it. So I'm going to be a whistleblower, and I'm going to tell everybody what's going to throw you in jail. Why are they not throwing these guys in jail? That's always the other thing that's mystified me about these whistleblower guys that are running around is I think a lot of it is they're getting permission to talk about this stuff, especially Lukatsky. Lukatsky said, my job, and maybe Colm Kelleher's as well, is taking highly classified material and moving it down into lower classifications. And he's the guy that said, I was in a congressional facility with a senator who we've now confirmed is Senator Reid. And I told them, this is a very long meeting. I'm just going to tell you the first part, very long meeting during that day. And I notified them that we had a craft and we had gotten inside it. That's about as open as you're going to get as to what's going on. This guy that ran the OSAP program and has now come forward, he has to have permission by somebody to say that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's being leaked.
It's pretty awesome, man. It's pretty awesome. Let's go to 509er here, which is why we shouldn't let Avi Loeb hypnotizing the world into thinking 3i Atlas is an enemy or an alien craft. You know, Avi Loeb does have his detractors by saying this might be an alien craft or not. 3i Atlas.
Well, okay. One of the problems again is this idea that I talked about with PhDs. that just because you're a PhD doesn't mean you know anything about UFOs. So Avi Loeb really doesn't know anything about UFOs. He comes in as an astronomer, but because we played the Rodney Dangerfield thing in the UFO field, because Avi Loeb, this guy from Harvard, everybody went, oh man, he wants to talk about UFOs. And it's like, whatever he says, everybody just goes down that road. And then people start pushing back. They realize that he doesn't have the information, or that he's got these budgets. He's trying to get grants for money, and he's asking for millions of dollars and stuff like that. But that's one of the problems that we have, is that we put all our emphasis on high level people with PhDs instead of talking to the people who are the experiencers. If you talk to the experiencers, you will find that 40% of all experiencers, 60% of all experiencers have had contact with non-human intelligence, will say, at one point during my experience, I knew the answer to everything in the universe or everything about myself. Why would you not thought, well, who cares about Avi Loeb? This person had basically the answer to everything. And that's the whole thing. These people are being given very highly important material. And just because some guy's got a PhD doesn't mean he knows anything. That's the problem, that we made the mistake of allowing Avi Loeb to be the Pope of the UFO community, because we were so afraid of what people are going to think. And we'd say, oh, Avi Loeb believes it, so you got to, give me respect for what I'm doing. And no, that's got nothing to do with it. That's a mistake we're making in allowing a bunch of people to talk about UFOs and being the leader of the parade when they really don't know anything about UFOs.
Let's move on. Let's go to T-Bone here. Grant, what is your opinion of the explanation the President of the United States gave about the drones in New Jersey?
I think he was, it went down, it came up through him, and he knows that he's running the program, that it's called a PED, a Presidential Emergency Action Document. It was signed by Truman, the first one, not Truman, Eisenhower, the first one signed, that the president is in control of the cover-up. There's been 14, 15 presidents. They've all done the same thing. They're in control. It's not Congress. It's not a law. The president is running the show. This is an executive branch. So Trump will know what's going on. And what you do then is you allow the people, experts. My father was one for the Department of Transport. So what you do is, the minister doesn't know really what the answer is going to be. So you send it down to someone like my father, who is in the Department of Transport, and he makes an explanation, and that gets released, and the president just goes along with it. So this is the black ops people. This is them protecting the black ops stuff. It's just an idea that, like, now you can say anything you want. I mean, they're real, they're not real, and you're never going to prove it. And they know that. Nobody's going to prove them wrong. And what happened when they said they were just drones? All these people were wanting the truth. What happened? Everybody just rolled over and played dead. It's like, happens all the time. It's like we've gone along with this, that we're always so afraid of our situation because we haven't really studied it. So now there's a new report on the thing with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, how they shut down Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This new report came out. I mean, just dramatic stuff. But again, it's 1% of the people are going to be talking about it. The rest of the population doesn't even know that it happened and really doesn't care. They're just interested. It's like Walker said, you're just interested. Admit it, you're just interested. Why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? People are just interested. I wonder what that thing was over in New Jersey. I wonder what was going on there. And beyond that, they'll say, okay, it was this. And they go, oh, okay. And then just go back to their life and live their normal life.
I still think that was human technology. And I think we're blowing it out of proportion, claiming it's aliens.
Well, I mean, that would make the military sound like they're totally stupid. I mean, if you have them over Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, why would they not shoot them down instead of closing the base? I mean, why would you close the base if it's some kid flying a little $49 drone? I mean, you can shut the base down. These guys would take this thing out. They're experts. In fact, that's George Knapp did the interview. This is going back 10 years, talking to the head of the Roadrunners at Area 51. And he said, well, what are they working on now? And he said, well, they're not working on a high-speed aircraft. He says, because we know you can go 2,200 miles an hour. And once you get past that, there's no metal that will take the heat. So no, we're not working on anything supersonic. We're working on drones. He said that 10 years ago. So they're working on drones. They've been working on counter drones and shooting down drones. And to say that the U.S. military can't shoot down a lousy drone over Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and that they would in fact just close the base doesn't mean anything. You would have one drone if they were shooting them down. there would be one drone that would be recovered and someone would have the drone. Nobody's come up with a drone to do this. It's almost the same thing as the cattle mutilation. Nobody's ever been arrested for cattle mutilation. Nobody's ever been arrested for a crop circle. It's this whole sort of thing where the phenomena, I believe, is doing this wow thing. They're doing this Jesus circus where they do all this weird stuff and they're doing it all over the place. And they're coming in like with the Skywatcher. So they say that they came in a formation of 21 crafts. Like, what do you need 21 crafts for? I mean, if you're military, this is like insane, or even UFOs, it's insane. This is like a show. Someone's putting on a show, either trying to test their radar on these guys or something like that. These things don't happen by accident. 21 crafts coming in a formation. And I believe the same thing, where these things are appearing all over the place and they're coming in bigger numbers and bigger numbers. And that's what the Canadians were told back in 56. There was going to be an overflight of Ottawa. There's going to be 500 bells, which is what they called the Adamski crafts at the time. And of course, nothing happened. But that's the idea, is that they just do weirder and weirder things. It's not one craft anymore. It's like piles of them. We hear hundreds of them with the Nimitz and stuff like that. And the idea that the Nimitz couldn't shoot these things down, I don't believe that either. I mean, their technology isn't that good, but they are good on drone technology and anti-drone technology. And the fact that they didn't shoot any of these things down and nobody pulled one of these things and brought it to the news broadcasters and said, look, this is exactly what it is a big mystery to me, how you can fly these things around and nobody seems to be able to shoot one down.
It's very interesting indeed. Let's go to another question. Let's go to Joe. Why don't you think Chuck Schumer and his buddies open all this stuff up when they're already in charge?
Good question. They did. They absolutely did. That's what I said. If there had been 6 more Democrats elected in the House of Representatives, we would have disclosure today. Schumer and the other guy, the Rounds, put the bill together. It passed the Senate Intelligence Committee 18-0. It was flying, and it was this whole deal that we were going to disclose over a 6-year period. That's what Chris Bledsoe told me back in 2016. There was this 6 or 7 year period where they would gradually disclose, and Hillary was supposed to do it, but Hillary lost the election, so they had to redo it, and all the generals got outed. But this is the whole idea. They did. Schumer had the thing. They had that they'd be able to subpoena people. They'd bring them in and force them to testify. The president would be a head of a 9-person committee that would decide as to what they were going to do and how this thing would be disclosed over 7 years. They were going to do eminent domain. They were going to take all the crafts back. Everything was there that you wanted for disclosure, and they were going to all the documents would have to be released. All the documents, everything, the Black Ops documents, everything would have to be released to this committee, and they would decide what to do. And because the Republicans had a couple more votes, they ran the House Armed Services and the House Intelligence Committee, and those are the 2 biggest committees. And they got Mike Johnson on board with them, and they said it was a party vote, which means the party vote, you're going to lose the vote. So it was dead in the water because it would not pass the House. And that was the whole thing. We were a couple seats away from actually getting it. If they'd had the seats, they couldn't have stopped it. They could not have stopped it. It was a bill that Schumer and all his buddies had that would have gone through, and there was nothing to do. The only way you could stop it was to block it in the House, and that's what happened. It was blocked in the House, but it was ready to go. You would have disclosure in 6 years from the time that first bill was blocked.
Do you think that we're going to see a 4th try next year at the Schumer rounds, Bill? Or do you think?
Oh yeah, there will, but it's a waste of time. It's a simple vote thing. I mean, it's same in Canada. You vote on party lines. Almost everything is party line now. And if you don't vote on party line, you're thrown out of the party. So it's the basic thing that whatever the guy on top decides is going to be the vote. You go along with it or you're done. So yeah, they're going to try to put it through, and they're going to say, oh, it's better, it's got this or that. As long as the Republicans are controlling the committees in the House, Rogers and the other guy, they say they're going to block it, and whatever their reason is for blocking it, they're still going to block it, and it's going to be a party line vote, and the Democrats don't have enough votes to push it through. They don't even have enough votes in the Senate. They passed it through the Senate because they controlled the Senate. They don't control the Senate, they don't control the White House, and they don't control the House. And the disclosure thing is basically a Democratic position. It's not a Republican position. The Republican position was that we are not going to allow eminent domain. We're not going to allow all this sort of stuff. We're going to block this. You're threatening national security, all that kind of stuff. And it was the two guys and head of armed services and intelligence in the House who started the block, and they made it a party line vote, and it was over.
All right. Let's say goodnight to you, Mr. Grant Cameron.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully people learned something.
Absolutely. Grant Cameron's books can be found on Amazon. Swamp Dweller and Extra Small Lee Strauss coming up next on the show.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right. There we go.
So when do you start promoting your conference?
We're going to start here as soon as the website gets up. I got to get some bios in, and which I'll do this weekend, and then we'll start as soon as the website is up. We'll start promoting it.
Okay, let me know, and I will do what I can.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
What's that?
I said appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, you bet.
Good night, Grant Cameron. Everybody, be right back. All right, let's bring in Mr. Lee. How you doing, buddy? Make sure you turn your microphone on.
I'm feeling away. Not good.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I am battling one of my worst bouts of depression here, probably in the last 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, buddy.
Yeah, it happens. Nothing you can do about it. You just got to be a man and just say it is what it is because nobody gives a shit, right?
Well, we all care.
Well, I mean, you care, but anyways, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Here we go with hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We really appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Lorene. Lorene is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
Hi, my name is Zachary, and at the time of my story, I was 13 years old. For my birthday, my grandfather and 2 of my uncles took me out to a property deep in the woods around Two Harbors, Minnesota. When we got there from our 6-hour drive, we noticed that no hunting signs were right next to the entrance and had been bent in a way that looked like someone extremely heavy smashed the palm of their hand down on the top of the sign. After we unpacked our things, we made dinner and got our 4-wheelers out of our trailer. They will come into play a little bit later in the story. I went to look around the area of the sign. Looking closer at the sign, I could see on the back of it there were 4 deep, long claw marks, like something had crushed it like a soda can, and ran a knife along the outside of it. I looked around, and I saw some massive canine footprints around the size of a softball. I started to get an uneasy feeling because I have heard of the stories and have been a true believer in the paranormal and cryptids my entire life. After I got back, we set up a bonfire out of the foliage from 2 150-foot pine trees my uncles had cut down for poles. During the fire, I noticed that the forest went eerily quiet. Too quiet to feel safe. Now, I've grown up in the woods and have come face to face with 500-pound black bears and have not been afraid. I've had my camp that our idiot selves didn't have a fire going in surrounded by wolves and coyotes, and still I wasn't afraid. But I can tell you, I was very nervous about the next couple of hours. During the fire, the group got a whiff of this pungent odor that I can only describe as wet dog and old pee. My uncle, who we'll call Mike, literally vomited. The smell was so bad, and this had me shaking in my boots, because I've heard the stories, and I know what to be aware of with my sense of smell. About 15 minutes of this god-awful smell, and it finally went away, or so I had thought. Later on that night, I decided I would go on the paved road outside of our property with one of our 4-wheelers for a little while. I made the mistake of not bringing an extra clip for my Colt 1911, which I have on me at all times when I am there. When I headed out, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched or stalked. About 2 miles down the road, I stopped to take a leak, and that's when I realized again that the forest was once again dead silent and the smell was back. I reached for my gun that was in my back waistline, but before I could even get the gun out, this giant menacing creature came slowly walking out of the woods on all fours. At about this time, I was 10 feet or so from the ATV, which I luckily left running for the short time that I'd be gone. Now, this creature walked out, and I was immediately in shock. I had no idea what I was looking at, but every fiber in my body knew I was looking at some sort of werewolf. Then before I could blink, I heard this gut-wrenching, popping noise as the creature stood up on his hind legs. He had deeper amber eyes that were filled with pure rage and hatred. Its fur was a light black, almost gray color that shone brightly in the light of the moon. Before this creature had time to tear me into pieces, I got my butt on the ATV and floored it out of there at 35 miles per hour. But the creature gave chase. At that moment, when I saw that it was keeping up with the ATV, I felt like I was going to die at any moment. My anxiety was through the roof. It was then that I realized my gun was still partially in my waistline. I pulled it out, loaded one in the chamber, while still driving at now almost 45 miles per hour. The ATV's top speed. I took the gun off the safety and fired around directly into its face. It let out a deep, low, yet strangely high-pitched scream or howl. I couldn't tell at the same time, but it felt like it shook my very soul. The creature leaped at me, but I made a sharp turn into another lane of the road. I fired 2 or more rounds into the creature's chest, knowing damn well that I hit the thing, yet it wouldn't stop. I fired all but my last round into his chest, neck, and stomach, which slowed it down a good bit. I made my last bullet count when he was about 60 yards away from me. I stopped sharp, took aim at its eye, and fired off my last round. Apparently, I hit it dead on because it went barreling down onto the pavement and just lay there motionless without life. I slowly made my way over on the ATV, which was now almost out of gas, and to make sure it was dead, I took out the machete in the back of the ATV and stabbed it clean into the beast's other eye, knowing that I destroyed the brain, and that it would never bother anyone again. I moved the body onto the side of the road, and that damn SOB was heavy. It had to be at least 400 pounds. It was almost impossible to drag into the trees. It took me nearly 20 minutes. Then I got back to camp. I parked the ATV, put the keys away, and went to sit by the campfire and smoke some weed, because all I wanted to do was get my mind off that creature that nearly took my life. After finishing my smoke, I went into my car, grabbed an extra clip, put it in my pocket, and filled my regular clip with hollow points. After that, I went to bed in my tent with my gun under my pillow. I already had my .243 hunting rifle in the tent with me, so I felt as safe as I could be. I quickly fell asleep, and when I awoke the next morning, I smelled bacon and coffee in the air, and thought to myself that maybe all was a dream. But I checked my clip, and sure enough, the hollow points were loaded in there. I walked over to where I parked the ATV the night before, and there was a deep, long single claw mark on the back, which I later got my butt chewed out for from my grandfather. I didn't tell anybody about what had happened, until I smelled it again around dusk tonight. I was going to be on my guard because if there's more than one around there, there's usually a whole pack. So I kept my rifle, my Colt, and an extra magazine for both guns with me all day, especially on the trails. Besides the smell, that day was rather uneventful. When I went to see the body at around 8 o'clock, it was gone. No blood, no body, no fur, nothing. It was just the area where I had dragged it along and dropped it the night before. I wasn't taking any chances, so I decided to stay at camp and stay awake most of the night. The next day I went out with my .22 and did some rabbit and squirrel hunting for dinner that night. Around noon I heard the same howl as when I shot the beast for the first time the night before, and there were shivers running up and down my spine. Now I still had my handgun, so I knew I would be alright against one of them, but I knew if there were multiple, I would have never stepped foot on that land. The trees around me began to shake. There were branches falling everywhere around me, and that's when I saw the dog man from 2 nights prior. He had a soul-wrenching snarl on his face. I'm happy I had already turned the four-wheeler around because I hit the gas and didn't let off until I was back at camp. We left that night, and to this day, I do not want to return to that property ever again. I warned my grandfather and uncle, but they didn't believe me, and they think I just saw a bear or something. But for me, I know it wasn't a bear.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. He's got thousands of stories right there for you. And the message of that one is don't go in the forest alone, especially if you're looking for cryptids. Here's Lee.
They call him extra small, but he's big where it counts. Chasing Bigfoot through the woods on wild accounts. Talking ghosts in the dark, UFOs in the sky. Aliens laughing while they're cruising by. Yeah, Lee Strauss is out there. Hear that cosmic call? He's the legend of Element 115. Here on Spaced Out Radio's Q&A.
I added a little UFO to that right at the end.
I heard that. You got to
Make it a little bit more magical. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man. I'm working through it. You know?
You sick?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you need to put that on level 10 there, bud. It was a little quiet.
Well, it sounded just perfect because it's nice and smooth. We gotta relax the audience into getting you some smooth music because your dulcet tones just relax and chill everybody.
My dulcet tones. Huh?
Dulcet tones. Yeah. I want to make a comment on something here. During the break, I said something to you, and I know our YouTube audience heard it. I am probably right now going through the worst depression that I have gone through in the last 8 years. And, I made a comment about as a man, nobody cares. And I realize people care. Don't get me wrong. I know people care. But there is always that lingering mode inside your head that says, like, who do you got? Who do you got? And I was realizing something today after, my daytime job where didn't have another, I think I'm on about 11 or 12 not so good days in a row. And, then you come here and you try and, with the radio show that we do, you have to be upbeat. The audience doesn't care about how bad your day was. That's an old radio trick.
Yeah.
Right? I just choose to talk about it. That's what I choose to do. I choose to talk about it because as men, we're not supposed to.
Right.
Okay? It's buckle up, bite your tongue, and just take it. That's where you get these famous sayings, it is what it is, and I'm fine.
Muscle up, buttercup.
You got that right.
Oh, yeah.
You got that right. And I'm not fine.
Yeah.
I'm not fine. I'm not trying to depress anybody. This is my personal battle. And it's great to read the comments like in the chat room. Dave, we love you and everything like that. And trust me, I do appreciate that. But you guys aren't here every day. Okay, you're in the chat room. You see the facade of what is really going on. And because I have a secondary career, because I have things that I need to accomplish as a man, a father, a partner, you have to be able to lack of a better term, man up.
Yep.
When in reality, all you want to do is go stand in the shower for about 3 hours. And during that time, you just hope and pray that all of the bad stuff that you're going through at that point will just wash itself away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And what triggered me this week outside of my daytime job was I had a longtime listener. I was, one of the things I like to make fun of for our American audience is Black Friday. And I started kind of making fun about Black Friday. And, I realize there's political tension all over the place. And frankly, I don't care. We have it up here as well. I don't care. But one of these people who I really like in our chat room basically told me to hit the road using 2 words, one that starts with F and the other one that starts with O. And that triggered me.
Uh-huh.
And it sent me spiraling because this show is supposed to be my freedom. I created it. I use this as my escape from reality, just like we want this show to be the escape for everybody who is listening. And frankly, I am upset with the United States right now, only because since COVID and online shopping, we don't brawl as much anymore on Black Friday. I miss that. And, some people will say you're being overly sensitive. You're being overly,
Dramatic.
I'm a human being, man. I do feel the tension of what's going on politically in the US, in Canada, with my daytime job that's now once again going to be affected by tariffs. Okay? And I feel that. I feel the pain of everybody, man. And I get it that everybody is all on edge right now. And I can't even use my own show as a safe place because I get told the FO.
Yeah.
You can't win. You can't win.
Well, Dave, I've had something similar happen this week with me. There was an individual that has come on my show twice. And I was making some funny videos and using AI. And the individual said to me, well, this is why I don't watch your show. And I do that for fun. I make those little videos for fun now that I know how to do it.
You make great AI videos. They're amazing. And there is always a humor behind them.
Right. Yeah. They're not meant to be, taken seriously or anything like that. So, but that individual said to me that, because I was making those videos, that's why they don't watch my show. And that kind of hurt me. It did. It affected me for probably 3 days.
Yeah. Yep. Where's your backbone, Lee? You're a man. Tough it out.
Yeah.
Rub some dirt on it.
Right.
And then what added, and I don't want to one up you here because that's horrible.
Well, we're not doing that today.
Okay. So I meet this person at my daytime job whose daughter goes to school with my son. And, you always get to know about your children from other people when they're at school, because when you ask your children, how was school today? Oh, it was good. Well, what'd you do? I don't know. We played. We did. And my son's in grade 7. Just around in Canada, high school here starts at grade 8. And we don't have junior high here for the most part in British Columbia. And so the guy comes in today and he's like, I was asking my daughter about your boy there. And she says he's a really nice boy. You got a really, really good boy. I said, thank you. He's good. He's quiet, but he's good. And she goes, yeah. She goes, she often sees him playing alone all the time. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, so my daughter will often go up to him to see if he's okay and everything like that. And so I talked to my son about it today, and I just said, this is a tough thing for a father to hear. So I went up to my boy and I'm like, are you lonely? And he goes, no. I said, how come you play alone at school? I don't know. I said, well, are you okay? Are you getting bullied? No. Just like to do my own thing. And as a father, you don't really take that too well. So now when you're hearing answers like that, now you start pressing a little bit. So you're like, well, are you sure you're not getting bullied? Why don't the other kids want to play with you? I said, you have lots of friends. He goes, yeah. He's like, I don't know. Just like doing my own thing. And it was grating my teeth today because I think I was searching for something that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was weird. It was weird because I will tell you this. There are a lot of young girls in his class who thinks he's a cutie,
Yeah.
and, like he plays hockey and everything like that. And it's not like one of these situations where all of a sudden, he has a birthday party and nobody shows up. Like last birthday party, he invited 10 kids, 10 kids showed up. So I don't know really what it is. I think he's just an introverted kid.
Well, I think that's pretty common with certain individuals, especially if certain phenomenon run in families.
Good point. Good point. So anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest that,
Mhm.
you know what? Sometimes life sucks and
Yes, sir.
you think the worst. And sometimes you don't think that you have the strength to make it another day, but you have to.
You have to.
You have
Yeah.
no choice. So I apologize for wasting like half an hour on this.
Ah, you're good for another 15 minutes if you're complaining about a half an hour.
Oh, isn't that true? Our radio audience numbers probably just went straight down. Why the hell
No,
is he
actually, they're pretty good. Well, the radio, I don't know. I'm watching YouTube here, so
Yeah. You know what I'm saying, Ben? But I'm telling you, man, if you were a man like me, and I apologize to the women, I'm not trying to pick on you, but there's a lot of support for women's health out there. There really is. And for us men, we struggle because we're not supposed to talk about it. If you guys out there, and I'm speaking to the men, if you're feeling like me, don't be afraid to talk about it.
right.
Talking is healing, right?
Yep.
And none of you would ever expect me, the guy who creates this show, to be one of the loneliest people in the world. Feel like I'm on an island of my own. And I fight it every day.
Hmm.
Talk about it. It's okay. It really is. Let's go to break.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
I'm gonna grab some Tums, man.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely overworked, Runa. Definitely overworked. I don't really, I really don't believe in counseling. I've gone to counseling before when necessary. I don't believe in counseling. I used to until I don't know how it is in the US, but here they work on a sliding scale. So what they one of the first questions they ask you is how much do you make? So if you make over a certain amount, that's what they charge you is towards your salary rather than let's say a good counselor is like $100 an hour. But let's say you make over $60,000 a year. Well, now that rate up here goes up to 300. I'm not paying $300 an hour from somebody who doesn't give a shit about me, who's going to act all concerned for an hour and then turn it off and say, okay, we'll see you next week. It's like going to the chiropractor who cracks you twice. You wait half an hour to see them. They see you for like 4 minutes. They crack you twice. And then they're like, okay, we'll see you next week. Well, you did nothing for me. So no, I don't believe in counseling.
It's too bad that I live 8 hours away from you.
You know what it is? I'll be honest with you, Lee, and I know you and I have talked about this, but I'll say this in front of our audience for the first time, and I don't really give a shit what anybody's opinion is. I'm lonely. I am very lonely. And I don't have a lot of friends. I have some great friends. Like Lee, you're a great friend. Merle is a great friend. Okay. But around here, I don't have a lot of friends. And the friends that I have here are more like acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, I thought I had a best friend, and so did you.
Yeah. Well,
That kind of went odd.
yeah, just the weirdest thing.
Vanished. I don't have a lot of friends up here. And I literally today thought about putting a Facebook ad on our local town Ask It page, asking if there was anybody looking for a best friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have one. And you don't want your best friend to be somebody that you work with.
No.
You got to see them all the time. But I literally have no friends here. I have acquaintances. Right? I have people who say they're my friends, but never show up.
Yeah.
I'm lonely, man. Yeah, I have my beautiful wife. I have my beautiful family and everything like that. But sometimes you just need somebody to be your best friend.
Yeah, you need somebody to go out into the woods with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that. And the worst part about it is none of us know why.
Mine live all too far away as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh, T-Bone, I'm all about the self-loathing, buddy. You and me both. So that's what it comes down to. I'm lonely.
Yep. I think about that, and I think that might have been a big reason why I left my marriage.
Yeah. Here we go. 5 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, we're into the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's Extra Small Lee Strauss with the Q&A. How you doing, buddy?
Here I am.
Rock
Fighting a
your
good fight.
hurricane.
Fighting a good fight here.
Yeah, me too, my friend. Me too.
Yep.
Not much happening in the UFO world right now. So we pick things back up. You know, are you surprised we are in this elongated calm before the storm?
Well, that's what it feels like. Everybody's trying to grasp at straws right now. I mean, even now, people are still grasping at 3i Atlas, which is on the other side of the sun. We can't even view it, but they're speculating. There's all this speculation going on. And so it seems like that's what you hear a lot about as you peruse through YouTube and similar channels and apps and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I mentioned this to Grant Cameron. John Greenwald from the Black Vault pretty much said that in this lull that we're in right now, and it's a long lull, my friend, long lull. He's saying that many of the 2017s, the people who jumped on the UFO bandwagon when it became fun and popular in 2017, are now starting to realize that, believe it or not, Lee, in the 1990s and 80s and 70s, that there were UFO happenings there. It all didn't start with just the Nimitz incident in 2004. And I had a good laugh and an eye roll at the same time with this, because I've always been able to divide the difference between the UFO people and the UAP people. The UAPers to me are bandwagoners. Most of them have not gone on the journey to understand the rich history that this subject has of cover-ups, of crash retrievals, of potential alien contact, of alien abductions, and everything that goes along the line. Are you surprised that many people are finally starting to realize that there is something more beyond 2004?
I think so. In fact, I don't remember her name, but a scientist was just looking at a bunch of footage from like the 1950s and the 1940s and stuff like that before we had satellites up in space. And she caught a lot, or she found a lot of anomalous objects in the sky even back then. And, a bunch of people came forward and did peer reviews on her work. And they said, this could be, this could be real. So there are some things that are happening still out there right now. Like NASA just found, life on Mars. And that's not possible life. They're saying life. So there are things that are happening. And they're big things, right? So I think we need to grab onto those little things. So they're going to carry us through until we have the next hearings, or until 3i Atlas does come around on the other side of the sun, so we can see what it's actually done, or if it has moved into another position, which is possible from what I hear. But everybody's thirsty for this. They are. Everybody's hungry for it right now. It's been a steady flow now for a year plus, right? And so we're ready.
But where do we take the next steps? Like, if you look at ufology right now, with this lull that's going on in news and everything, we've almost become addicted to the storylines of what's happening politically with this topic. We forget that there is a ton of researchers out there, most of them amateur researchers, who are working their tails off. And you know, you look at yourself. You're out there all trying to figure out what's going on in your hot spots. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my hot spot. You know, I mean, a lot of people are like you and I. We're just out there researching because number one, you know, some people go hunting, some people go fishing, some people knit blankets, some people play chess. This is our thing to do. This is what we do, trying to make fun for ourselves, if that makes any sense. And I guess the way I look at it, Lee, is when we sit there and try and press the issue of what is next, what are we doing next? I don't know where the answer is, because we become so reliant on the political side of things. We've forgotten about how many people are doing great work filming UFOs, filming people's experiences, talking about the stories that led us to this field. You know, the majority of us out there who, and for those who are new to this subject, hopefully you've found that in us where you can have some fun listening and learning about these topics. But for the majority of us who've been following this subject, let's say for 15, 20 years, we all couldn't wait until the night to listen to Art Bell. God bless his soul.
Yeah.
The best came first.
Right.
And we all learned from that show. That's how we learned about names like Stanton Friedman and Grant Cameron and Richard Dolan and Jim Mars and Linda Moulton Howe and Melinda Leslie and Lorian Fenton and many, 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 many others telling their stories about what's going on and their research about what's going on. It put the fright into us learning about this. Now it's become so nuts and bolts on this subject, more flesh and blood if you look in the cryptid world. I think we're missing what's going on right now, because we've taken these incredible subjects that we cover and we've turned them into journalistic stories or political stories or scientific stories, where those three groups are not giving us enough of what we need in order to get that fix, like someone like Art Bell did when every night you listened to him on the air, it was story time. Whether it was playing EVPs, whether it was talking about Mel's Hole, or you know, the sounds of hell from Russia, where they drilled that hole deep in and they heard the screaming and the torture going on, or the guy who allegedly called in when he was, you know, escaping from Area 51, and that ended up being a hoax. Bob Lazar stories, everything to go along with it. John Teeter. Remember the John Teeter story, the time traveler story?
Oh, yes.
That was
Yes.
fantastic radio.
Yes, it was.
It was great.
Amazing. Well, I would like to think that those people, aside from the individuals that we have bringing this stuff into Congress and talking about it, I would still like to believe those people are still out there, but they're being overshadowed right now, obviously, by the headlines and the news and the things that you're seeing get front page, you know, all over Twitter or X, excuse me. I mean, those things are grabbing headlines. And again, it happens again and again and again on YouTube with all of the other podcasters that grab onto the big headlines. And a lot of that stuff is just getting overshadowed. I mean, I'm sure, Dave, that major abductions are still going on out there, going on with people out there. And I'm sure there's so many people that have a story to tell. And we're not able to hear that story because the headlines are what they are.
I miss the story time. we got to do a better job of that, of bringing that in.
I
And that's
agree.
not just our show.
Mm-hmm.
There are about, I think, at one point, if you took paranormal, cryptid, and UFO shows, podcasts in the United States, there's over 20,000 of them. Some have very little subscribers, some are massive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of choice rather than going back to the 90s and early 2000s when Art Bell was your only choice or George Norrie was your only choice.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so I agree with you with what you're saying. Those stories are out there, but with the, it's the same argument that we have with if you had the smoking gun video, would you release it today? Right? If you had the smoking gun video, Lee, you're sitting on top of Mount Baker in Washington State, or you got your view of Mount Baker, and all of a sudden a triangular craft, let's say, hypothetically speaking, comes down, lands on the ground a couple hundred yards from you, and beings get out. Let's say you film all that. You release it? Would you?
No. And that's because of where AI is right now. You would have to have so much data on that. It wouldn't just be video. You would have to have, let's say, after the craft took off, you'd have to have a Geiger counter. You'd go to this spot. You'd have to film yourself, with the Geiger counter doing this and the readings. And there would have to be so much evidence on top of just video, soil samples, and just everything for it to be believable now. Not only that, you don't want to be that guy or that woman for that matter, right? That tries to bring something like that forward, because you'll probably get erased.
Yeah. And what you mean by erased is social media would literally tear you apart.
Well, not just social media, but the government could come after you.
Maybe. I think that's more doubtful than the trolls on the internet that will come at you if you had
They
the
would too.
smoking gun video.
They would too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't think, like I said before, I don't think I would ever release the smoking gun video if I had it. You're not going to make $1 million off of it.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
If you share it, you are literally opening up a door to extremely high amounts of criticism. And I'm not saying very polite criticism.
Ridicule and shame and just,
yes.
Yeah, everybody's going to know who you are, right? I mean, did
Absolutely.
you even hold a job at that point in time?
Well, that's if they're not doxing your job.
Yeah.
If they're not doxing your family, where your kids go to school, if you've been divorced before, like you have or I have, what's your ex-wife like? What's your current wife like, or your girlfriend? Okay. Do you have a criminal record? Where do you work? How much do you make? They're going after everything now. All because you filmed a UFO video, or all because you filmed a Bigfoot video, or whatever it may be.
Right. The only way to do this is you would have to release it anonymously through some means, and it might take you a while to do so, because you're going to have to find whatever those means would be.
Yeah, you would literally have to create a YouTube account that is so far gone from ties to you and release it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd probably have to get a burner phone and come up with some sort of a YouTube channel and do it that way through through Google, making up an account and all of that sort of thing.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not fun. It's
Oh,
not
no.
fun. This hasn't been a positive hour. It really is. I apologize to our listeners. Man.
But it is kind of fun because we get to speculate on how it could be done, and that might help that person if they're listening, right? If they
True
have.
enough. True enough. You know what? I had a guy a few years ago. Okay. This is going back about 8, 9 years ago now, maybe 10. No, not that far. About 8, 9 years ago. It was a guy out of the province of Manitoba. And he contacted me out of the blue. He's like, I don't know what to do with these. Okay. Literally, the guy was catching photographs of fairies in his
Oh,
yard.
yeah.
And he was a very simple, humble man. He was catching them on his video cameras, like his security cams. He was catching them with his cameras. He even had a dead body of one. Okay. So I got a hold of the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. I figured if anybody is going to know what to do, that's more his specialty than mine. And we both told the guy the same thing. Do not release these to anybody until we can get over there and scientifically get something going for you. Get the right people involved, because if you go out on your own saying, look what I caught, the people are going to eat you alive. Well, this guy didn't heed our advice. And the next thing you know, he just vanishes. Absolutely vanishes. Like, these things looked real. They didn't look photoshopped. They didn't look, that they were homemade, anything like that, like paper mache or anything like that. These photos were absolutely stunning. And after about 3-4 months of him doing this, after heeding our warning, boom, he is gone. Nobody has ever heard of the guy since, because he just got trounced over the coals. Now, there's a guy, let's say his photographs were real. Okay. Let's just say they were 100% legit. We'll never know because we don't have copies of them. Okay.
Yeah.
If they were, what are we missing out on? We're missing out on a great piece of the phenomena.
Exactly.
The ego got in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's ego can definitely be the destroyer, right?
Well, I mean, here he gets people putting it in his head. All these TV shows are going to come after you. That, you're going to make a ton of money off of this. You're probably sitting on at least $500,000 to $1 million, because everybody always rounds up from the $10 that you'll probably make off it, or $100, right? Why not round up? It's more fun.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of it. Disappeared. And that goes to say, like with what you're saying, if you had the smoking gun video, you wouldn't release it.
Nope. I'd sit on it for quite a while trying to figure out the best way to do so.
Yeah. The good part with what I do here at Spaced Out Radio is I know enough scientists and reputable researchers who could point me in the direction to do it. But if you're a guy like Jim Bob here, who is in Manitoba filming fairies flying in his yard, he's not going to know those people. He's going to be taking the words of every Tom, Dick, and Harry on Facebook, which is what he did.
Yeah. And they crushed him, and probably his family. I mean, that's the collateral damage from that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you hear? Because you will be speaking at Caribou Con 2026, September 18th through 20th. Did you hear that we have confirmed Grant Cameron as our keynote speaker?
I was going to say, I heard him talking. And I know that you were discussing that with him, and that's super cool. I love the guy. I met him through Michael years ago, and yeah, he's the best.
Have you met him, or just talked to him on the phone?
Talked to him on the phone.
Are you
Yeah.
excited about meeting Grant?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I told him, and I'll tell you the same thing. If you come up a couple days early, we'll do a nice trek into Flight 21.
There you go.
You know, you and me and Merle will take Grant out to Flight 21, and we'll give him the show of a lifetime.
Yeah, I was even thinking with Grant, I should look him up and contact him and talk to him about all the interesting things that I've encountered.
He'd probably love to hang out with you because you're
Mhm.
that guy. You're Lee Strauss. You're the extra small. You know. Sorry, ladies. Lee is taken now.
I
He's
am
taken. He's off the books. He's off the market.
happily.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. Lee, where can people find Element 115?
Well, right here on Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel, you can find me. And I'm here every Friday night.
Love it.
And I
8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern.
there you go.
Right before me, it's a good warm up. Thank you to Lee, and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. If you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Hi, Lee.
Hey, buddy.
Sorry you're not feeling well.
Oh, you know how it is. We endeavor to persevere.
Oh, you got that right. That right. Oh, man. Thank you for letting me vent tonight.
Oh man. I get you. I really do. I've been there plenty. And it is hard to talk to people about it. You can't go to work and talk to people about that crap. And just like you, my friends are either down in Arizona or way up north in Washington. So,
Oh, I know, dude. Like, Merle is really my closest friend. And he's 4.5 hours away,
yeah,
you know?
right.
Like, I'm almost to the point where, like, I put the trail cams back up last week,
Yeah.
and now I'm, like, having a panic attack on how do I get them on Sunday.
Oh, you guys got snow?
No, but I got nobody to go with,
Oh.
you know? And do I brave myself to go in there, especially into the back where all the things happen by the gifting tree?
Yeah.
Do I brave myself to do that on my own? I don't know. Like I'm in a pickle here.
Is this have you ever thought about taking your son out there?
He's not invited.
Okay.
Yeah, the phenomena doesn't want him there.
I gotcha. I completely understand.
Yeah.
I can get that. I know in my spot that I go for Sasquatch, they like women. So, yeah. I do not know about children though.
Yeah. Well, you know me, I'm very protective of who I take in there, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds here.
What about your wife?
No.
Okay.
Believe it or not, she's not invited because she has to protect the little dude.
Okay. That makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
shoot.
And it's not her cup of tea,
Right.
right? At least not right now.
Huh. Yeah, going out there alone is a little bit much.
Yeah. Right?
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
Oh, I totally don't feel comfortable.
Uh-oh. Well, as another man, just letting you know, in that location, yeah.
There's a safety issue there.
Oh,
Two
yeah. Big time.
Shadows, thank you for the super chat. You know?
And too bad you just can't call Tim and say, hey, I need you for 2 hours to just go get the cameras with me, and then you can be on your own doing your own Tim stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got to pick up his phone, man.
Oh man. Yeah. Exactly.
Is what it is. Mm-hmm. Joe is asking, what about Mikey? There's two Mikes. There's Merle and then there's Mike. I'm assuming you're talking about Mike. He's not invited up there. The phenomena, we brought him up there, and the phenomena did how the phenomena reacts up there is when they don't want somebody there, they do nothing. They shut down. Okay. So for instance, when I started this project, I was going through names of people who I wanted to bring up there to investigate. And I was clearing the names. Like for instance, when Lee came up, okay, for the first time, I knew for months previous that Lee was allowed to come up here to do it. Right. So that's just the way it is. And I mean, Lee, you understand, you've been there, that there, with the amount of phenomena that is there, you don't want to take a chance at overstepping your boundaries there.
That's correct.
And you have, and right now, the dumbest thing that I think anybody can do at this time of year, where the bears are foraging, the moose are in rut, the deer are getting ready for rut. The cougars are moving. The wolf packs are moving. The dumbest thing for anybody to do right now is to go into an area like that alone to pick up a couple of trail cams.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
to sit there for a couple of hours and just see what happens.
Yep. Yes, Joe Monk, you are correct. Aberdeen in Grays Harbor County is hot for Sasquatch.
Really?
Yes, definitely.
Where's Aberdeen?
It's on near the ocean. Just as you're going onto the peninsula from the south.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I am out for the weekend. Lee, I want you to stick around for just a couple minutes.
Sure.
Robbie G will not be here tomorrow night. His mom had a medical emergency, so he had to race up to, I think, Sacramento or someplace like that. But he'll be back for Sunday, should be in for Sunday. I apologize about that. He feels horrible. He had to cancel his guest for that day. But what we will do is get everything going. I will see you Monday night. My guest will be Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com. Thank you tonight to our super chatters, Two Shadows, Tim Mothman, or is it his goatee? I'm not sure who sent that. Jeff Steve Garvey, Mel WD40 with the lube chat, T-Bone my man, Maggie, Lori, can't even read my own writing, Mennonite Abe, and Pam Harris. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, and I'll try and be in a better mood for Monday. All right, guys, thank you very much. You take care. We'll talk soon.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.